Roll back, roll back, roll back. Welcome to another question and answer class at Coalhouse Easier to Work, New Jersey. Okay, that 408 Chants Lab. My name is Asukef Ray, student teacher at the master teacher, and we're going to start class off with the pledge of Mercedes. Akrahen Jarabni Patu. Akukrahenda Tayuhan Layable Sabat. Shalal Pa Tahudam's back Shabbat. Wahum Musa Tahetus back Wus Masa. Kare Saho Rako Saho Takun Saho Fahu. Wahek Halel Saho Fahum. Kare Jamut Saho Nakosh. That is English. I pledge allegiance to Wu-Sabat of the United Sabian tribe. One family under Sirius and Orion, with correct right knowledge, knowing right wisdom, right understanding. For all, right overstandingly, sound, solids, vibration. At that, any questions? We'll probably start. What? Allow us to start. Right. All right, there's nothing online yet. Y'all have questions? Feel free to type them in. Okay. Well, there was we keep on getting these new update videos, but this is real short. It was called Slander and Gossip. That's what go ahead. Yeah, so it's real short. No, slander and gossip. It says stop slandering and gossip and stay out of others' bedrooms. The race of devils is your enemy, not each other, fools. So it's from the Avatar. Yeah, I know. So, and that's a new one. I'm gonna need that. Stop that. Or yeah. So on that note, it always have been in our culture where we shouldn't be slandering and backbiting each other, right? Or slandering and gossip. If you go to an older scroll called Purity and Evens, there's a question in there that says, is there a difference between slandering and backbiting? So it goes like this. When you talk about a person and defame their name and injure their reputation or well-being, that is known as slander. You hear it on the news. You hear it on the talk shows. You read it in the newspapers. And slander has become a part of your everyday life. When you slander someone's character or reputation, that is known as backbite. Backbiting and slandering someone is against the laws of Mu'abs. Let me say it again. Slander, that's right. Backbiting is against the laws of Mu'abs or Wu-Sabat. When you backbite and slander, you damage a person's soul at the same time. You also do damage to your own soul.
I've seen that one more time, please. I've seen that one more time, please. All day, my own thing there.
Yeah, in your own mind, we can't put you. Sorry, we would go off. So it says, is there a difference between slandering and backbiting? And when you talk about a person but defame their name and injure their reputation or well-being, that is known as slander. You hear it on the news. You hear it on the talk shows. You read it in the newspaper. And slandering has become a part of your everyday lives. When you slander someone's character or reputation, that is known as a backbite. Backbiting and slandering someone is against the laws of Nuwap or Wu-Sabat. When you backbite and slander, you damage a person's soul. At the same time, you also do damage to your own soul. Next part it says, is a quote here from the Holy Tablets, right? It says, the human being section. So I was brought to a gate of hell and showed humankind hanging by their hair, and was told these were those who let their hair grow to adorn themselves for sin. Others I was shown hanging by their eyelids, and they had followers. Their eyes were lustful. Others hanging by their noses. They had perfumed themselves in sin. Others again by their tongues, for they were slanderers. Others again by their skin, for they robbed to wear precious clothes. Gossip is talking about someone in a positive form, still considered gossip. Answer, yes. You heard that. However, first let me give you the meaning of the word gossip. trifling, often groundless rumor, usually of a personal, sensational, or intimate nature, idle talk. 2, a person who habitually engage in such spoke. They use the word groundless, which means unsubstantiated, no foundation, no proof. In other words, not verified, made up, and the word rumor, meaning unverified information of a certain origin. The point is that gossip is usually based on information that someone got from someone else, who got it from someone else, but no one knows where the information really came from. But then, by then, the truth, if there was any in the first place, is twisted around from each person, adding their own emphasis on it. When information is derived by means of mouth, or he say, she say, it is usually a lie. Gossiping is when 2 or more people who are friends get together and discuss someone else. They may think that they are right, but gossiping, no matter how it is done, is wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean a conversation on killing someone or scheming against someone. Gossip can be about anything. You can gossip about a nation, a person, or a community. It is a sick disease. That people use to hide themselves and to hide their own shortcomings. Nubians suffer from what is known as the school of the monkey, meaning they like to laugh and joke in the face of seriousness instead of facing themselves in reality. The Caucasus have made Nubians feel so paranoid and insecure that they must always talk about someone else, usually each other, to make themselves feel secure and to keep others from talking about them. Oftentimes when the mind is idle, and an idle mind is the evil one's playground, this leads to gossip, which leads to slander and backbite. The evil one will use you any way he can, if he can get you to say things to hurt someone else and destroy their soul. You better believe that he will. People who will say whatever comes to their mind are usually gossip spirits. They speak before they think, and they do not take the time to evaluate what they are about to say or the effect it will have on others. Back then it was child of Elohim without cheetah. A child of the Netzu would never steal, lie, gossip, backbite, scream, betray, connive, or cover up for wrongdoings. For they will only suppress and repress everybody's growth, as well as the growth around them or themselves. Yeah. And that there. And plus,
Yeah, we got 2 online questions. First one from McCary Fowler to Rob Bath. Where should I have a picture or pictures of partner bad hanging in my home? What should I do with them? As in speak to the pictures, etc., etc. So he's asking the first part, where should he have pictures of partner bad? Yeah, no, in his home.
you could put the pictures wherever you desire to put. And the steps of communicating.
Yeah, he said, what should I do with them? Speak to the pictures, etc.
Well, we know that the pinches, right, is just a means of a ritualistic thing for you to make a connection, right? But in reality, you have to learn how to eventually mind link with the master teacher. When you can mind link with him, you can communicate to him at will, just like you do any of your ancestors. So him being your spiritual guide, you can make that connection if you go to the stages and practice to do it. Remember, when you're trying to reach out to someone, especially with the image, you're looking at the image, you're trying to connect. You're not always going to get a response that first time. So it's going to take time to do it over and over until you really make that connection. Also, you need to make sure you're good inside as well, because we're talking about spiritual exercise in this situation. The spiritual matters, you don't want to be dealing with spiritual matters and you're not good inside, because there's other spiritual beings out there, right? That I remember it was a class of history in Mahat, and the master talked about how if you're not good, you could get to like the 4th plane where all kind of demons could come at you. That's on the ether, going to the planes of existence, you know what I'm saying? So you have to be good within your man in doing spiritual practices, bro. Trying to connect to the ancestor ball, trying to connect to the master teacher.
All right. And the next question is from Alzamal Stewart Moore. He says, greetings, brothers. Question: what is meant by the Ray Haret Program?
I'm wondering myself the whole time. To my understanding, Ray Haret is, when you look that up in many different scrolls that the master teacher have, that's like another symbol of Ray, right? The Ray, the Most High being. So you're talking about the Ray Haret Program, and Ray, his image of the Ray Haret statue is still the image of Har, right? Because you look at the image of Har and look at the image of Ray, you're looking at the same face mask. The only difference is Ray has the sun disk on the head. So what is that? It's really connecting to how all of us supposed to become a hard type. In this day and time, if you're using religious terms, a Messiah type, right? So when you look at what the master teacher is doing for us on the planet Earth right now, trying to get all of us to a point of becoming this type of deity, we each will kind of represent like a Messiah type for Halloween family as well. So if you're looking at the Ray Haret Program, it was never really expressed exactly what it is. It's always been books just telling you, throwing it out there. You know what I'm saying? Ray Haret Program. So, but like I said, if you know who Ray is and connecting it with other books like Egypt and the Pharaohs, where it tells you Ray Haret, that's just another image of Ray, the Most High, for ancient Egyptians, right? So it's supposed to be a program and trying to raise us. And on this planet today, Ray is the Most High, right? And if we're looking today, when our culture, when we say who's the Most High, when we as Sabians say that, you know our answer, right?
Well,
Okay, Rush, right? So we'll say Baba's the Most High. But we don't mean it the same way like a religious person. We mean the person with the most knowledge on this planet right now. So we say that's the master teacher. So if he is that symbol today, right, and we are his students, it's supposed to get to a point where some of us supposed to become likened unto him. And that's why if you go into OSM, it says we should become like the chosen one. And the chosen one is who? Well, about. So he said, those who don't become like the chosen one shall perish. We have the cycles after physical hue.
Right, yeah, cycles of life and death.
Cycle after life and death. And the Black say very lies that Chants tells you that you're supposed to become a master, a 720 being. So all of this type of information is all in connection with the Ray Haret concept, meaning all of us supposed to become this master. You know what I'm saying? While we're here. Because it's better to do it in the physical than trying to do this in the spiritual. Because remember, time in the physical and time in the spiritual is two different things. Time in the spiritual could be for eons. Time in the physical is very short. So in this short span of time, the master teacher is here to do what? He says, in many classes past, he said, my doctrine is to teach him about the nature of the angels. I don't know if you ever heard a class where he told you like that. Yeah. And what he's trying to tell you is that Sabians, or people on the planet, are angels, right? Now, in order to get to the point that you're supposed to get to, you have to have someone here to who's from those high planes to teach you how to get to those levels. So us being angels, now what is an angel? A messenger. Because the word angel from the Greek angelos means a messenger. When you look at the word Nawapi and you go into, let's say you go to Holy Tablets, it tells me Nawapi means to convey a message, right? So if it means to convey a message, right? What is that? An angel. So you go back to our name today, we say, okay, we're Sabians from Sab, meaning what? Heavenly hosts. Well, what is the host of God called? Angels. So Nuwapians, Sabians, all the same meaning at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? The root meaning is still the same. You have a message to give. Now, here's the thing. There's not just good angels on this planet. Some are good, some are bad. And each angel, whether they're good or bad, have their own message. You understand what I'm saying? So good angels will have a good message to try to raise people up. Then a bad angel will have another message to try to keep people on a certain level. So Nuwapians or Satan is supposed to be the good angels because they're under Tahuti, or what they call the scriptures, Michael. And we know that if you take the Michael concept and go back to the Bible, Michael warred with the devil. And the devil have his own angels, right? We know Michael is Yanun galactically. We know the devil is Nana here on this planet. So some people on this planet are children of Might or his students. And then some of us are children of Nana. The problem is they are intermingled with each other. And because they're intermingled with each other, you can't tell who's who. But you know who they are by their action, right? Know what a person would do by action. So if you have an environment that's based on right knowledge, a person who's the child of sin is not going to be too happy in that environment. If you really have the environment set up like an angel from the green lights, you know what I'm saying? That means that a green light angelic beings who was amongst each other and living that lifestyle of right knowledge, Wu-Sabat, it would affect a person who's from the underlight. Think about it. They won't want to be in that environment. Eventually they'll leave. It'll be so much good that evil wants to leave. Just like you could be in an area where it's so much bad that good wants to leave. There's those situations too. Sure. If you're in a negative environment, you're like, it's not for me. And you leave. So you can make your environment so good, so much for right knowledge, people can be like, it's right gone.
Yeah.
All right. We have another question from Kerry Fowler. He's asking, in our culture, at what age is a person held responsible for their decisions? Second question is, at what age are we considered grown?
In our culture, in our real culture, you're really an adult when you pass puberty. So that would be like 13, 14, right? Now, when we say adult, we don't mean go have children.
Right.
So just make that clear.
Right. Fair.
If you go to that, we mean like at that age, it's time for you to take on responsibility. In the Hebrew culture, when a child turns 13 and 14, they give them what's called for female, a bagnes, and for the boys, a barnes. Well, in our culture, it's the same thing because their culture come from our culture. So our children at 13 was when they was considered adult, and not the Egypt culture. You know what I'm saying? So you'll find that we lose our children live in the European culture that says 18 is an adult. 18 or what? 18 it's 18, right? They'll tell you 18 in this culture, but what happens is when you try to do not give that child responsibilities from the time that they 13, 14, because genetically inside, that's the age where they become rebellious. Why? Because this the age where they supposed to be given responsibilities as an adult. You know what I'm saying? So when we go and use their cultural standards and overlay it upon us in this culture, you'll find that we lose a lot of our children from those ages, 13, 14, 15. You know, they don't want to listen to us no more because we gave them responsibilities at that time. We gave them a ritual. We gave them a ceremony to say, you're coming into womanhood, you're coming into manhood. You know what I'm saying? But when you go by their system, by the time you hit 18, you already lost a child. Because most of us lose our children in those age groups around that time. So what's another part of this?
It's saying the second part is, at what age are we considered grown?
Yeah.
So it's kind of tied that in there.
But you're not grown at 13. But you do take on responsibility.
Right.
And in our culture, we know that when you're grown, because anywhere we go, we always assimilate to the culture that we're in. So what I mean by that, if it wasn't our ancient culture, we would have lived in our own land. We would have had our own laws of how we do stuff. When you lived here on their land, then you would respect the laws of the land that you live, right? So we know in our culture it's 18. Yes.
Was there a time in our culture where you said, like, I think 40 or 50 are considered like adults, but that's when you're grown and something? That's what something happens at that point in your life, they switch over.
I remember the master saying that at different points in your life, like let's say at 7, the first 7 years, you become, he said, when a child hits 7, this is who they are, right? Most of the time, you got to mold your child before they get to 7 so that character don't set in. So if you see any errors in your child from the time they're young to 7-year-olds, probably want to try to curve it at those 8. And he said another thing happened, another 7 kids. That's what the child hits 14. There's going to be another shift in their character again. And you got to begin, try to adjust them, then so forth, right? So we used to say when you hit 40, you become elder. But we know that over time, a lot of 40-year-olds was still looking like 30 or 20, right? So Baba then changed the age to what is it now? 54? 54 as an elder today. So when you hit 40 though, you would have had enough experience in life to recognize things. So he said by 40, you become like a prophet. Prophet, a person is who can tell you when something's going to happen. Why they can tell you when something's going to happen? Because they either saw it or they've been through it. So a person at 40, they should be wise enough to be able to say, I've seen this. So when our youth is going through stages, the elders, the ones score 40, they should be able to tell them, hey, I see the path you're going now. Right. You shouldn't do that because this is going to happen.
Yep.
You understand? And if the young man or woman is wise, is intelligent enough, right, they'll listen. But if they're not, they'll do things on their own and go through their own experience. I think it's better to learn from somebody else's experience than your own, right?
Was.
Yeah.
So, and another thing, even with the mature, we also teach that everyone doesn't reach the age of maturity. So even though we know 40 was the age of an elder, right? We know that there's people that's now in their 40s who have not reached the age of maturity. And unfortunately, if they are 40 and have to reach age of maturity, we don't know when they're going to reach. They could, right? Sure, it was then. Right. So by 40, you should be mature enough to know what's going on and how to handle situations. Of course.
Nothing online at the moment. Well, there we go. McKinney Fowler. Will we, Nubians, Nubuns, Nubians, have remained 5 feet 4 inches forever if we didn't mix with others?
First, we gotta remember, the Nubians is one strand of us, and remember the pygmies, right, was those original Hats. The Nubians are much colder than the pygmies. So what I mean by that is the original peoples of today, or we'll call them the Tarhites or the Sand people, right? They originally was 5 feet 4 inches for the male, and 4 feet 5 inches for the female. When you talk about the Nubians now, the Nubians are a mixture by way of the Anunnaki or the Anunnakis. So they were much taller than the pygmies. Now, for his question, he says,
He said, will we have remained 5 feet 4 inches forever if we didn't mix with others?
yes. I would say if others didn't try to come and mix in with us, right? Because we was taught not to mix our genes with other people. And what happens is, over time, when different ETs came to this planet and wanted to make their own creation, what they would do is tamper with the Tarhite genes. So they would abduct them and then mix and graftate them and make other beings. And that's why you'll find in every race on the planet, you'll still find some linkage linked to them that's linked to us. For instance, when you study the Asians, you'll find that the leading geneticist of China is named as Jin Li, Professor Jin Li. And when they did a scientific experiment to find out where does the Chinese people come from, they found that even in them, even though they look different from a lot of the races, they found that their genes still ties back into Africans. You know what I'm saying? We know that the Dravidians is a strain of Africans as well, right? And we know that who else? Aboriginals is a strain of Africans, and some of the Makasus, you know what I'm saying, on the planet.
All right, we have another question, Stuart Moore. His question is, going back to slander, would discussing someone in a complimentary way outside of their present, could that be considered as slander also?
Yes, it is. It's still considered slander. So that means that we're supposed to be having conversation like, oh no, oh no.
I wait.
Yeah, so even when talking about someone in the positive, it's still considered slander. And in the scroll I was reading earlier, purity and neatness, it clearly stated, it said,
Asher. See,
well, the question was this: is talking about someone in a positive form still considered gossiping? Right? So he says yes. So when it comes to slander, want you to understand what slander is. Slander is what? When you talk about a person and defame their name and injure their reputation and well-being, that is known as slander. So you can't really talk about someone in a positive and slander.
Right, that would just be God. Yeah, okay.
So you can't really slander a person and talking gossip. You can't slander a person in the positive. Slander is always in the negative. So gossip, you could gossip in the positive and negative. So gossiping in positive or negative is still not good. And here's the thing. When a person slanders you, that person is called a slander, right? If you look up the word devil, right? And look what it means etymologically. The word devil means to slander. So when a person is slandering, at that moment, they are in the devil.
That's right. That's right.
By definition.
Yeah, a devil. Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny that Bob would have to say that with this damn zombie. It's crazy.
All right. We have another question. Zamal McCary Fowler. His question is: are there specific chants given to us to do in the tones of F, A, or C?
Yeah, I think the chance that we are getting, that we do at what 9, 3, and 9.
939 and possibly 3 of you up. Yeah.
So those chants that we are given is supposed to be done in those tonations. Really, you're supposed to be able to tune yourself in by getting there was a piano looking thing called a harmonium, and you're really supposed to set the tone, and you're really supposed to do it according to the tone of the harmonium, because the harmonium is an instrument that doesn't use strings; it uses wind, right, by nature. So you're supposed to really tune up with the area, tune it up with the harmonium, so that you can make the sound similar to, let's say, if you're gonna do it in a F, A, or C, with the miseration. What part is that?
Oh, but name the atom. That's it. Yeah, but it's still on the top 3 sections of it. Yeah, one of those.
So just to be clear with the chanticity. So this is on wavelength A. This is verse 35. It says, as a people, if you do not wish to chant in unison, which is A, and together in harmony, FAC, then that is your choice to remain unlocked. And so the chant shouldn't be in what? A, in unison. The best instrument to help the langi is the one found in India. It's called harmony. There's a keyboard that uses wind and not electricity. You pump it with your right hand as you hold notes or keys down with your left hand, or vice versa if you're left hand. This is for perfect sound. He said, I do feel this will help you all if you will perform together. Cool. Yeah, that's what that.
All right, we have another question from Carrie. He's asking, can you recommend any practices, foods, herbs, or anything that helps with brain function? Roots, walnuts, swallow, shield,
Water. So that's definitely water. That's right. And the electric raise. That's right. It can breathe. Sunlight in breathe.
breathing. That's right.
Sleeps.
It's a lot. Exercise. Yeah.
Yeah. All those stuff.
Right. That's yeah. You got that started. We started throwing them at you, but yeah, that's what it is.
Another thing that can help your brain function is what you focus your brain on. You know what deal with that? You know, it's two types of teas. This is going back to the gossiping.
Great, what a tease. Yeah, plain
Negativity and positivity. So positive things could help your brain function too. Also, doing things. You know that anything you're doing, before you do it, you have to communicate with your brain somehow for it. So if you're a person who's trying to do anything in your life, you can work your brain to focus on what you want it to focus on. For instance, some people only see negativity in their life. Like they walk around and saying the world is messed up, what's crazy, what's that? That's because that's in their mind. You know what I'm saying? Because we know that the world is negative things in the world, but everything in the world is not negative. Right. So sometimes you meet someone and they could always be on that frequency of negativity because that's all they're seeing. And guess what? All they're seeing because that's all they focus on. And the mind has a way of, well, the mind is so powerful, and you being the person that can wean it and control it a certain way, you can see whatever you want to see. Listen, you ever hear a person who, I remember when I first got my first car, right? I thought I had a car that nobody else had like that, right? Then once you have the car, you start driving around, you start saying, yo, everybody got this car. And the thing is that the reality is that everybody didn't have the car, but I wasn't focusing on it. You know what I'm saying? But because I now had the car, my focus now, whether I was conscious of it or not, it was always conscious of this particular car because I drive it. You know what I'm saying? So same thing. If you only see a negativity, it's because that's what you're focusing on. You could also consistently see positivity if you want to focus on it. I mean, you have to have that in your mind that that's what you're looking for. You know what I'm saying? And that could also help you develop your brain. Also, you could do exercise, mental exercise, where if you wanted to make how your brain works stronger, you could say, today I'm going to focus on a particular color and just see that color all day. You say, red is the color I want to focus on today. And these are things to exercise your brain, remembering stuff, even out studying our sports.
Yep.
There's one aspect of remembering things, which is cool. If you can remember a whole part of that, that's good. Another level is after you remember it, actually know it as well. So you know, so you're not like a parrot. You know it, you memorize it, but you also know it. You know what I'm saying? So those things help exercise your brain.
Oh, that's a good one.
There's a lot of things that you can do to make your brain
strong functional span. Log games. Forward games.
So yeah, if it's a chain,
Okay. You know, I was like, except for Connect Four.
I hate and except for now.
Exactly. Them two.
I would suggest chats.
Okay. That's decent for sure. All right. We have another question. Carrie is asking, did Baba say anything about NDEs? And he goes on to explain that's near-death experiences. Did Baba explain anything about that?
Yeah, it was a scroll that he had told us to get one time. I forgot the name of the scroll. But it talked about a lot of people who had near-death experience. Well, we know that near-death experience is not really death. Why we say that? Because real death is when your body decomposes, right? And these people are not really dead per se. They're at that early stage of what we're calling death. So they're not fully gone. So sometimes a person could be, let's say a person could be going through surgery and they think they put them on anesthesia and they did, but the person is still conscious and felt it. It's a situation like that, I'm saying. There's people who they say they died and came back because they recorded it that the person died at this point and then they wake back up. In reality, those people wasn't completely dead. Because once you're really dead and rigor mortis sets in, you really can't come back forever. You can't come back, at least not in that body, right? So, yeah, some people have a near, that's why they call it near death, right? Because what's the sister to death? Sleeping. So when a person in that stage of unconsciousness, they could think that they're dying, but when they're really not. Some people know anyone who drowned. There's people who drowned and got saved, meaning they probably gave up and said, I'm done. And then wake up one day and realize they still alive, right? That person drowned. They have a near-death experience as well. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't die.
Getting a brain death, being wavy.
Well, brain dead.
Yeah. Basically, your brain is dead, but your body is still functioning.
oh, use oxygen to her.
Right. So then in that instance, you're still not dead. So that would be still an NDE. Yeah.
But the brain is not active. It's not utility.
Yeah, in medical terms. Right. All right, so no questions at the moment. Any questions in the room?
I was just trying to find what mind where you guys were.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, welcome as always, Mukta. I appreciate it.
To me, that's cheap. That's cheap.
Which one?
Online.
Right. It's better than come in. We agree. We prefer we had physical presence as well as online. Agree. Nothing yet. All right. You have a question from Alzamal, Satak, Kobina, Nakti, Rabat. Is having a victim mentality by always blaming others for your problems an example of negative thoughts?
I would say so. Because we all, anything that happens to you is to some degree is also your fault as well. It's not always somebody else. We could be at the wrong place at the wrong time. You observe our reactions to situations, and but always in a victim mentality type of thing. But a person like that, what they do is they always looking for somebody to blame. Because if you're a victim, someone has to be the victimizer, right? And we know that in any situation, there's a action when there's a reaction. So before you became a victim, what happened?
What led to that present state, right? Okay.
Those be the ones that's always telling other people stuff.
Alzamal Satalat. Appreciate the questions. Feel free to type them in. We'll do our best to address and answer them for you.
So I read this called false claims, right? Their first man, Adam. Genesis 1:76. God said, "Let us make man, Adam, in our image, and not God likeness." Was born of a woman. Job 14:1. Man that is born of a woman is a few days in full trouble, also called Hebrew Shanta number 2145, Zakar. Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And called Kyle. Genesis 2:8. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward, Eden, and there he put the man whom he formed. Sumerians called Adapa, was not a Hebrew, was not a Israelite, was not a Judahite, Jew, was not a Christian, was not a Muslim of any kind. These are false claims. That's a good question, right? Like, you're a Christian? That was Adam Christian? Or the first one was Adam a Muslim? No, nor was any of those from him. Genesis 1:26-26. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the seas and over the fowls of the air, and over the cattle and over all the earth, and over every creeping living thing that creepeth upon earth." So God created man in his image, his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Down to Noah, Genesis 5:28-29. And Lamech lived 108 and 2 years and begot a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, "The same shall comfort us concerning our works and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord has accursed." Noah was not a Hebrew. Noah was not a Hebrew, nor an Israelite, was not a Judahite, Jew, was not a Christian. That was not a Muslim of any kind. These are false claims. Nor was any of those from him. Genesis 5:32. And Noah was 500 years old. And Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth, down to Terah, Azar, called by the Sumerians Terah. Genesis 11:24. And Nahor lived 920 years and begot Terah. He was not a Hebrew, and he was not an Israelite, and was not a Judahite, Jew, or was not a Christian, and was not a Muslim of any kind. These are false claims. The very first man to be called a Hebrew was Abraham, Ibrahim, called by the Sumerians Ibrahim, Genesis 14:13. And there came one that had escaped and told Abraham, the Amorite, brother of Ishmael, and the brother of Anak, and these were confederates with Abraham. None before him belonged to the religion of the Bible or Quran, nor follow what they teach or claim. The very first man to be called a Israelite was Jacob, Genesis 30:27-28. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and has prevailed. None before him belonged to the religion of the Bible or Quran, nor him, nor them to Buha follow, nor them follow what they teach or claim. The very first man to be called a Judahite, or Jew, later was Genesis 29:35. And she said, conceive again and bear a son. And she said, now I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. None before him belonged to the Zamat religion of the Bible or Quran, nor him, nor did they follow what is claimed or taught as Judaism. The very first man to be called a Christian was Paul, Acts 11:26. And when he was found, he brought him onto Antioch. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the church and taught much people, and the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. None before him was called Christian. They all belonged to the religion of a man called Musa, who started their religion, Exodus 1:6 and 10. As Exodus 1:6 and 10. Amram, his father, and Jochebed, his mother, Exodus 6:20. And Amram took him, Jochebed, his father, sister to wife. And she bare him Aaron and Moses, and the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. The quotes, Exodus 1:1-6. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. For Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. Exodus 1:10. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it came to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join us also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. He was taught and learned all he knew while growing up in Egypt. Acts 7:22-22. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in words and in deeds. And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. He was 40 years old when he first met Israelites. He was a Hebrew by blood, or Abraham, not by religion. He was an Israelite by blood of Jacob, not by religion. He was not a Judahite, Jew, because he was the Levite by tribe, and was a Levite before he received the book called the Torah, claimed to be the first 5 books of the new religion. There was and is not no such religion as Hebrews, nor Israelites, nor Judahites, Jews, nor Christians. In reality, these are titles of people. The Bible and Quran claim that, and not one shred of proof has been found to support their claim today. They make claims, tell stories, pass down legend, use other cultures, names, and lands to include their claims, set up tombs with no bodies, bones, own holy sites with no facts to confirm their belief, holy brothers, which are souvenirs they claim, such as the Stone of Destiny, that they claim Jacob slept upon when he saw heaven open. It's been proven to be fake, or the black stone of Islamism in their holy city of Mecca, housed in the corner of a cube-shaped building called the Ab. It has been proven to be just a meteorite, and it's not even black. It's round, and now has cracks. Parts of the original parts of Jesus proven to be fake. The Shroud of Turin, which they claim covered a crucified body of Jesus, DNA from it confirmed his blood type, and it traced back to a people called Druze, who migrated from Egypt to Jerusalem, now in Nazareth. And these false claims go on in their belief system of how blind faith just believe what is told to them. Thousands of stone tablets uncovered in Iraq in 1885 AD tells their real stories of the Bible and Quran, not the same. Qumran scrolls of the Dead Sea Scrolls, also found 1947, outside Israel, with many lost scrolls, tell new stories, not the exact. And in 1945, in Egypt, the Nag Hammadi found lost books of the Christian stories, not the same as held today. Facts that the chapters of the Quran were lost, destroyed, or kept by one sect, yet kept out of the Quran, which is held today by most Muslims. They all make claims of who was this and who was that, from Arab to Muhammad. And the very first man to be called Muslim was not Muhammad nor Ali. It was Muslimat. The Muslim call him Muslimat al-Qasha, or Muslima, the light. He claims to be Muslim and a prophet at the same time of Muhammad. Muslima was born before Muhammad and wrote his own chapter, some now found in the Quran. The sect of Muhammad in time had him killed by an African slave named Washi, who's also called Hamza, in a battle of Uhud. Today, our race who accept this fate, Islamism, don't know the real stories of it, nor of Hebrew Israelites, nor Judahites, Jews, nor Christians. They just, by blind faith, without understanding the language of these faiths, follow blindly in false claims. 2 Corinthians 5:7, Hebrews 11:1, Quran 2:3-4. Just believe, have faith. Don't investigate, question, learn the language. Just follow the lead. And that's it. Question?
None online in the room? Well, nothing yet.
B.
You missed, yes.
That's something, isn't that? No, we got another question. Can you explain how house cats?
See, this, we can switch that.
You want to switch? Okay. All right, roll back. So, back there. All right.
Ready?
Tour.
Okay. From McCary Fowler. Can you explain how house cats were created using serpents? What scroll is this found in?
I've never heard it explained that way, that house cats have individuals being gated by serpents. I don't know. He did ask though what scroll that was in. I just never heard. I've never read that personally, so I couldn't tell you what scroll that would be in. I do know that house cats, as you call them, were originally protectors of the ancient Egyptian tombs. They were actually in the tomb and would protect the pharaoh while he's waiting to be transitioned, or the feminine. You know what I mean? But I haven't heard of it being created by serpents. All right. While we're waiting for questions, which we definitely hope to come through so that we can do our jobs as students of the mass teacher, Baba Yanuri, I do want to share what's called the 9 ways. And it starts off, the master teacher says, we who are true Sabians, we Wapians, Sabians, Cuban nations, live by the 9 ways. 1. Goodness of intention. 2. Goodness of thought. 3. Goodness of actions. 4. Goodness of deeds. 5. Goodness of character. 6. Goodness of choice. 7. Goodness of hygiene. 8 is goodness of morals. And 9, goodness of examples. So, those of us who are living our lives, who are on the path of true spiritual development, you would remind yourself of those 9 ways. If anything that you do don't fall into that, therein rests a correction that needs to be made. So this is not judgment. These are just the 9 ways we as children of Partner Care or the Necker or Natharu, as their children, these are the ways that we're supposed to conduct ourselves. And then you are gossiping or slandering or any of the things we touched on earlier in class, then you would say it doesn't fit in the 9 ways, because what are your intentions? Are they good? If they are, then we're not going to swear. What are your thoughts? Again, my mom, I mentioned, power of the mind. You have to have goodness of thought so that goodness will attract to you, or you will attract goodness and kindness. Your actions have to dictate and be more prevalent, more noticeable than your words. Because you can talk a good game, but if your actions are the opposite of that, those who watch you would not hear anything that you say, because the truth is not in your words. It's actually found in your actions and your deeds. And your character are formed by your actions and your deeds, which come from the thoughts and the intentions thereof. Then they have a choice. So the goodness of choice means if you're presented with a circumstance to do or not do, and what you do is not positive or based in goodness, then that's a choice that you make. And then that's where some people find themselves in the realm of the victim, but they made a choice to participate or partake of a certain thing, and therefore now the reaction of that may make them wish to call themselves a victim, or some harmful act may have befallen them, but they precipitated that with partaking in some other action. So goodness of hygiene is pretty much self-explanatory, right? We can stand here in front of you and say, if you have a body odor and people frown when you come around, obviously the odor is not what it is, because cleanliness is next to deity, or as we would say, God did this. So goodness of hygiene, take care of your body, right? Because why? The indwelling spirit onto the soul resides inside of that. And if you have a victim of odors, that is another form of attraction with this human beings. They like decomposition, rot, foul odors, things like that. Then you had your goodness of your morals. You all should have a moral compass that we don't need somebody else's GPS to go by. You know what to do and what not to do. As discussed again earlier, at a certain age, you should have the mental wherewithal to make those proper choices, which reside in the moral that you set as a part of, in conjunction with natural nature. And then number 9 is really important because it's the goodness of examples. Now, why is an example? Why shouldn't it be based in goodness? Because you're always being watched. Not just by your watchers, those higher beings, but how about the children? They're always watching. So the examples that you set, they can hear you, but they're watching you as well. And if you're giving them bad examples to a child who has not developed enough to differentiate between good and bad, they see you as someone that they love. So what you do will always be viewed as good to them until they mentally can disseminate good from not good, or not pleasant or not real. So the examples we set for those who are watching, who may never ever say it they're watching, but if they replicate what you're doing, they obviously watched it. So the examples had to be good. They had to be set in a place where you would be proud if you saw your child or a freak of your children do the same thing that you did. And if you, how they, as adults, do we point the finger at the children? Oh, that child is such and such, but they saw you knew it. So you created that in that child. You made it okay for that child to feel they could do that particular thing. So we have to be very mindful of the examples we set. All right, that's the 9 ways.
So we have questions.
Sure.
Akim Dansi.
Okay, that's it all back. Yeah, you got it. Raw bat, I can.
Can your 30 spirits have a positive effect on the way you live? That's one. And can you tune them out? Is talking to our ancestors different from the dirt? So the first one, can your 30 spirits have a positive effect on the way you live?
Okay. I would love to tell you yes, but that's not actual fact, right? Because of the question that you asked, you said, can your 30 spirits have a positive? No, because some of your 30 spirits are not positive, or let's say they're not agreeable, right? How do you know that? Because you have some of your 30 spirits, right, who were in this world before they embraced right knowledge, regardless of the name that you want to give to it, before they embraced a degree of self-awareness that had them conduct themselves a certain way. So they went through their life with certain attractions that they had, certain likes, and those likes are detrimental. I.e., one of your 30 spirits may like to smoke, or may like to drink, or may like to eat bad foods, right? So one of them will try to use you if you listen to them. So you have to be able to identify your voice first, and then any of those 30 that try to come and influence you, and hear the word, influence you, inside the spirit, the blood, the fluid. They try to influence you to do something so they can feel that stimuli through your body. So you have to be able to know those voices when they come, and you identify them, or give them a color, or give them a nature, or give them an attribute, so that when you hear that voice, you know it's not yours. So if you read Patsarat, 30 spirits, I'm going to get to the other questions as well, but if you read that, it kind of explains how some of them are and some of them may not be. So first thing we want to do, the master teacher Bob Yanur, he starts off with verse 2. I have incarnated before you, amongst you, to renew your story after 24,000 years and 6,000 years of the spell of sleep of ignorance. 3. And it had come your time again. He's talking to TQ and all of us, and this is real time. This is a now conversation. And I say that because when you're reading these Patsarak, the master secrets or the actual facts, the updates, or you're hearing it, when you are personally reading it, it is talking to you. You have to embrace the scrolls as if it's a conversation. So, verse 3, it has become your time again to return to your true and holy nature as Natharu. 4, to break the spell and be born again. That's the second resurrection. I'm going to get to what the 30 spirits and how they are, but we want to walk up to that. 5, you, the mothers and fathers, the root race of all others in regard of Midroids, the symbolizers of all others, and in fact, the gods of earth. must be raised from the death, mentioned death, as the money is raised to everlasting life. 6, you must remember what and who you are to all others. 7, and here's the part, you must bind the 30 spirits that seek to control you. So as I was stating, all 30 spirits will not have a positive influence. They seek to control you, to have you do the day of Jordan light, because they had not developed spiritually. You get past the plane of force. Even if they have and make it to the spiritual plane, their orientation is just beginning, but they won't get to that yet because they haven't broken the habits that bind them to the planet. Now, 8, the very voices of your own Salafa ancestors who lived in the image of the beast, and at death have the trap in this hell for them, right? 9, you must bind them and free them from the realm of hell, that you will be free of their whispers. It's your bad heart and your foul mind, which affects your very actions each day of your life. So now they have these, Master Teacher goes on to explain that. So I'm skipping a few verses. And let's go to the voice. I'm going to skip verse 10. And let's go to verse, well, let's read. I don't want to skip it so it can address, of course. Verse 10. The voices who whisper to your inner mind as to what is best to do, what is right to do, and what is good to do, part of the 9 ways. 11. And voices who whisper to your inner emotions and desires, what is not best for you and others. 12. What is not right to do, what is not good for you. 13. The whispers that are agreeable and the whispers that are disagreeable. So in the 30 spirits, you're going to have both. So you're probably saying, well, I'm a good being. So why, and if I'm a good being, I must have come from good beings. That is true to a point, right? Now, what happens is amongst those 30 spirits, you have a duality, which is the rule of this universe. So some are going to be agreeable and some are going to be disagreeable. You, as a living being now, and any of us in this room, you know that from your other living relatives. You have some relatives right now who have a disagreeable nature. It seems just to be their way. Then you have other relatives who you like to meet around. When they come around, it's a comforting energy. You have others where the conversations is very short. Is very abbreviated, because you know the longer you sit in this person's presence, sooner or later something disagreeable is going to be said or done. So no, the 30 spirits are not all positive. And then as you read this, Patriarcha goes on to verse 14, and I'll stop there. Your choice, your will is influenced by the very voices of and in your DNA. So now, with this doctrine that repairs your DNA, you have to be able to, again, learn your true voice. So now you will still seek or listen to the voices of those, they your spiritual lineage, that mean well for you. They're the ones that will whisper as well, but they'll tell you not to do a certain thing that's negative. They help you make the choices of the 9 ways, which are all good. Those are the ones that will protect you or give you this inside voice, this inner voice that guides you aright or correct, right? So again, they all are not on that same vibration. So you bind them to you so you can free them from being trapped while you're on your path. And then when you translate or transition and become a spiritual being, that's where they can guide you, because they're in that realm of spiritual beings. All right, I pray that helped. What's the rest of the question?
Can you tune them out?
Absolutely. You have to tune them out. Not say tune them out so that you can't get them, because they're inside you anyway. You'll never be able to tune them out like that. What you can do is learn the difference of who's coming to you, who's whispering to you, and the ones that you don't want to hear because they may be disagreeable, you kind of just tone them down. You tone them down, but you still bind them with you. Why? Because you are on a path of resurrection itself, mentally, meaning you become their savior. So it's important that you don't discard them, nor to bind them to you, but don't let them influence you or distract you to make things of this world attractive to you. All right?
This is the thing. He said, is talking to our ancestors different from the 30?
No, the ancestors are still your nasaba, your relatives. However, the further you go, right? When you talk about the 30 spirits, let's do it like that. When you talk about your 30 spirits, that's only going back 4 generations. That's the nasaba, the relative. When you want to talk to your ancestors that are those four that are with you that have been assigned to you at birth. They were assigned to you, those four. They are not replaced when one of them, when you say you did birth and another one, you don't push them out. They are assigned to you, right? Now, when you want to talk to your ancestors that are previous or predate those four, that's when you ask the oldest feminine of the four generations to bring the other ones to you, because you are connected, right? Now, I want to make sure I answer the question correctly. If you're talking about ancestors as in purely part of the authority, yes, the conversation is different. But you're talking about your relatives on your line, your lineage, the age of your line. You can go back to the very first strand of physical DNA. You can reach them beyond the four generations, but you ask that oldest feminine in your four to bring the other ones to you. She can call all of them your blood seed link. And the oldest of us were children of the Netzaru or the Natharu. That does take us back to these beings. We have to understand when we're chanting, right? At the end of the chant, we have 99 that we're aware of. And each of them have more. And you can get in contact with them once you make that link with Super. Right now, we only know those 99. We know some other ones that are not included, but the 99 are set because of the 99 elements on the physical realm. That's why in the chants, each one of them, there are sections, right? You have the deities of the earth. You have deities of the water. You have deities of the air. Then you have the Mukhtaru, the ones of nature, the oldest ones. Those are the first ones. Then you have the exalted ones, which are the Ennead. Then you have the others who are assigned certain jobs and positions. You have a blood seed link to them, but you have to go through your Nasabu and then all the way to your first strand of DNA, and then we connect with the Panatharu, right? And then when you say, are it different? Yes, because if you're speaking to Panatharu and you're asking for something, it can't be for you. You're skipping the line per se. If you're asking anything for yourself, you ask your Nasabu. Why? Because they know you intimately by being assigned to you, right? So if you ask for someone else, they even ask Panatharu because they know all of us intimately. All right? I pray that answered the question. If not, type it in another way if I missed it. I've been having no questions.
Kerry Fowler.
Yes.
So was electricity used in ancient Semitic?
Absolutely. Not only electricity, but higher forms, right? The pyramids themselves were actually devices, right? That will send and receive these higher forms. And you notice what's called the Damagilis. And that was actually coming up out of the pyramids. So yes, forms of electricity. They actually had stellars on the walls of Egypt where you have a being at the end, and it seems like he's holding something that literally resembles a light bulb, right? In fact, the ancient Egyptians, our foremothers and forefathers, were so advanced technologically because of the direct contact with Panatharu, the Enneads, right? The Argolads as well. They had such a direct link with them in those ancient days that they were performing brain surgery. They were performing intricate eye surgeries. When we were a lot more healthy at the time, when it was recalled for, they had the ability to do that thing. You think they would operate in mirror night by torchlight? Or they had chambers where they would actually have these forms of electricity and energy per se. We're not going to limit it just to electricity. They had forms of energy that they were able to manipulate through higher sciences to serve their needs. So yes, to answer that question, electricity was actually a thing, and it did exist in our ancient time.
Most
All right, so if we could, we'll just continue with 30 spirits so we can have a better understanding of it as well. So you had the ones that are agreeable, you had the ones that are disagreeable. So verse 15, what you became at the birth. 16, what you accepted as a group. 17, what you believe you want as opposed to what you need. 18, your inner voices who whisper to you only, who whisper to you only wish to fulfill their lifelong desires within your flesh and body. 19. To lust their lust, to pleasure as they wish to be pleased by any and all. 20. They seek to lose your frame, which is the body, for their whole use, even unto your death. 21. And each of the 30 spirits in your DNA is linked to their own 30 spirits DNA. And all of the spirits they had encountered during their whole lives. 22. How they subdivided into legions. If you can read about legions in Mark chapter 5, verse 13. For he said, I said, come out with the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, what is thy name? And he answered, saying, my name is Legion, but we are many. Let's stop right there. This being who's being spoken to says, my name is Legion, for we are many. Where's the meaning coming from? Well, we just read. And each of the 30 Ka'u spirits in the DNA is linked to their own 30. So you already had 30 times 30. Now, if you want to add that, once you get that answer, which is what, 900? That's just with them. And each of them had 30. So you say 900 times 30. Now you have 2,700. That's related to you by blood. But also you now have to incorporate, which you don't know because you wasn't there. You weren't born yet. Is linked to their own 30 spirits, DNA, and all of the spirits they have encountered during their own lives. So to get more on that, we would read Projection and Reflection, which talks about the mother, because she has a matrix, right? The feminine. So anybody that she's ever touched in her life becomes a part of that on a spiritual level. So you're adding all of that. So that's how many, and they subdivide into legions. My name is Legion, for we are many. And he besought them much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now there was there, nigh unto the mountains, a great herd of swine feeding. And all the devils besought him, saying, send us into the swine. These are the legions, talking to this being who's about to exercise it out of another person. And they said, do not send us away. Send us into the swine. For those that want walking, send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. And this is the being that they're calling Jesus, who's telling the story. And forthwith, Jesus gave them leave, meaning he released them from this person to go into the swine. And the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. There were about 2,000, and they were choked. So they ran off the cliff, went to the water, they died. 23. And when the unclean spirits are gone out of you, you only have one voice and good whispers of your ancestors. So again, to circle back to who's talking to your ancestors. Don't look at your Nasabu as not your ancestors. They are. But you have your ancestors that are assigned to you. You have the ones that are assigned to them, all the way back again to the first strand of the DNA on the planet. 24. Yet, take not up into you more spirits, more wicked than your own. What is the master teacher telling us about not taking any spirits into you? Be careful with whom you mix your DNA. That genetic kiss can be deadly for you and a reward for a lesser being. You'll like, when you have conversation, in most cases, if you're not like-minded, one person gives and the other person takes. From a simple thing is conversation. Imagine now if you're mixing fluids with them. The process and the rules are the same. Someone is going to be giving and someone's going to be taking. So be careful who you mix your genes with. 25. All one's life, these evil spirits can hack their way, mess up their lives, and hinder their learning by erasing the memory in the subconscious mind, making it seem hard to learn, to remember, destroying your life. 26. Leading you with drugs, drinking, smoking, sex, crime, to lying, to stealing, and to killing, making you live by danger, chance, gamble, giving you diseases and sickness, make you think you're mad, crazy, and insane. 27. And there are also, this is another level to it, there are also walk-ins that are eternal legs and transfers from one person to another by many means other than sex. 28, just as the soup from your bowl does not taste the same as the soup in another person's bowl, eating from the same pot, served at the same time. 29, why? Because once it is yours, you send out your etheric rays from your solar plexus, becomes a part of you, and the same for each person, and then you get to turn to each his own, right? 30, your truth. So Canaanites could transfer their 6 etheric spirit forces to you by their evil, wicked, or wakanu rituals in their churches, temples, mosques, and by contact. The one, just as disease can be passed on, airborne, or liquid, so also is the spirit being passed on. 32, your inner ancestors will protect you once you open up to them and speak with those good inner DNA who are transformed from flesh and blood to spirit and akal ether. Another question there. Yeah, that's from Hakeem. That's all right, Hakeem, what's up? Don't talk about you get.
Okay, two spirits / souls become one on the physical or spiritual plane.
Okay. Now, where do you talk about
Or attached sutra.
or Tatsuja? Okay, it would be easier for two spirits to inhabit the same body, because a spirit can come and live with a child from up to 7 to 9 years. But when you talk about souls, two souls can't really inhabit the same space and time at the same time, because each of the souls that will be coming here are unique. In other words, they've never happened before, they won't happen again, which makes us individual souls while in the flesh. However, each of us that are here, individual souls, when the body disperses or dissipates and we become spiritual onto etheric beings, we all go back into one great soul called the oversoul, right? So two souls can't really inhabit the same body, but multiple spirits can. And a lot of times when you see people who appear as if they had these oscillating moods, they're like bipolar or whatever, that's because they're dealing with a spiritual conflict inside of it. Not a soul, but a spiritual conflict. And one day, one of the other spirits dominates, and then a week later, the second one may dominate. But when it comes to the two spirits that are one spirit who is passed on, they come to that child, they will only stay, again, for 7 to 9 years, and then that child will have his complete spirit and soul, and that one who stayed was only there, in most cases, to finish the job. And then they may either go back to the spiritual plane, or it may stay with that child as their guardians throughout their whole life. All right? But the two souls can't combine. Now, that's here. Let's talk about your etheric counterpart. That's a different conversation. The etheric counterpart is you. That's really you, but in another existence, right? So your spiritual counterpart has when y'all come together, y'all will merge to become, again, one great soul onto your travels in the higher realms. That would be the only time y'all come together to merge. And even then, once you merge, you will only be one thing. You'll either be 720 agreeable or 720 disagreeable. You won't have that influx of what, that conversation or confrontational existence. It still be one soul. I pray I answered my question. Can looking fun.
You're quick. How did I say?
You got a question? I'll look and now I find it there are counterparts. Think there. Yeah. All right, so this is the update from July 24th, 2013. Now, this is something the master teacher gave us, 12 years ago, going on, not yet, right? And let's see if it rings true to what's happening now and beyond. Let no words be no. Question: what happens to you when you have a dream and you don't want to wake up? Bible said, you have found grace and have met your counterpart, who is not a different or separate being from you, but you, a part of you in another dimension. What about, will they try and communicate with someone on another side? In order to communicate during that time, you must be asleep or in a meditative state, almost like being in a sleep state. You have to drop down to a certain level. An example would be going down 3 levels, notes or octaves of A, because there are 3. A is the natural tone divide. Nature's tone is C, and the universe is F, which is like Earth, right? So you go into nature, which is high. The gate itself opens up about 2:30 a.m. It closes around 3:30 a.m. So we say 3 a.m. and we call it a shift, as what we call time shifts as well. You cannot connect them. Your counterpart would make the connection and bring them to you. So for example, if they're trying to reach a loved one, it would occur during this time. That's why you hear the things about the witches out. Witches and warlocks start their rituals around 12 a.m. midnight. You can also share dreams with your counterparts, yet when they wake up, that is the end of their dream. That is why you are unable to remember that dream, or you forget really quick, because there was actually your counterpart's dream. You're actually experiencing through your dreams or meditative state portions of your counterpart's life. And once you wake, you sever that connection because their day ended. So does that mean the devil is speaking inside your head besides your ancestors? That's a very good question. No, the counterpart is you and speaks at the same time you do. They are opposite in everything you are. If the counterpart is right-handed, you will be left-handed and vice versa. While you are speaking, they will be speaking. Yet it would sound backwards here and you would sound backwards there. You may say, why don't you remember seeing or meeting your counterpart? That's because he/she remembers seeing you and it was in their dream. Another example, when you share a dream or you get to a certain place or an alley, or you remember seeing at Popeyes or KFC, being in a certain place, and it is not there. Then later, in another dream, it is there. That's because your counterpart told you it was there. Once you pass on to the next round, you will merge with your counterpart and become one. It's like a pyramid symbol, as above, so below. The pyramid of the physical plane is the same as the spiritual, yet opposite. It is the same principle. The ancient Mamalu or Egyptians had a picture that showed this concept, where it is 2 people or pairs of legs standing opposite each other. And I'll stop there. Just go on to another how, but the parts of chanting, which is good. But counterparts, that's just one build. So the counterpart is actually you, right? So how can the counterpart be you and not have a soul if you have a soul? Yeah. Right. You say it, believe me. Right. So now the question, you would ask the question, so if my counterpart is me and I have my soul, do they have their own soul? Which means there will be 2 souls. Yes. And how is that possible if it's really you? It's possible because it's you in another dimension. So the other dimension is vibrating on a different, frequency, et cetera, but it must have, if you have a soul, that counterpart has to have a soul, right? And if that counterpart is separate from you, then the soul can't be the same, because you may be positive or agreeable, but your counterpart is disagreeable by that very nature. Or this, I see her hand coming up. Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead. No, that's
So when it comes to and I don't like this word because we use it so cliche, spiritual accuracies, and it comes to meditation and different things like that, aligning ourselves.
okay. All right.
Different things that Bible has given us over the years of you go to a state of deep meditation, things of those sorts to elevate ourselves.
Oh, sir.
How does that play a role with your counterpart? How does it all work together? Get case. Because what if, like you said, if they're agreeable, disagreeable, what if they don't want to go on that journey? you are like, can they have this be opposite to you and say that I don't go in that spirit?
They will be anti-spiritual, for lack of a better word, right? Because if your spirit, if your counterpart is 100%, what would I say? 10 toes down, staying on business, being disagreeable. I want to relate to everybody, but so if they're 10 toes down and they're standing on business, I don't want to be spiritual. They're rough. They're just, to them, being disagreeable is agreeable. So they're going to live their lives that way, which is why the battle per se, which is not really a physical battle, but when y'all come together to merge as one of yourselves will dominate the other. So if your disagreeable counterpart is more true to being themselves than you who here on this side pretend or say the spiritual, but don't do or don't put in the work for the spiritual development, you will lose. Because they kept their part of the bargain with themselves. They accepted who they are.
So it's just like when we have all these internal conflicts and battles and things of not wanting to do things and, oh, I don't want to do that. And it's all these it's like, even as us Sabians, we struggle so much with doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
Like coming to them, things like that.
Right.
How does the counterpart player, is that like because of them too? Like we're struggling?
Like I see. No. You know why we as Sabian or anybody who wants to do good find it so difficult here? Because we haven't visited their world unless they're in a meditative or dream state. But you know why it's so difficult for us to do the good things all the time here? Is because we had, by way of mixing, some disagreeable against us. And we're fighting that. And then on top of that, because some of us learn self-discipline through our spiritual practices. And yet again, and repeatedly, something always comes to distract us. Why is that? Because we here are experiencing the end of the moon cycle. Everything on here is permeated to distract us. Everything. So that's why we find it so difficult unless we truly master ourselves and learn to say, I see that, but I don't want to be that, right? Because what they will do is try to distract you with all the pleasures and the stimuli on this world so that you'll never make it to the next world. That's their plot, right? So things that they do will keep you here. So as long as you don't go there, they don't care if they're not going either. So we're in a world right now that's permeated on negative energy. So that fight is like us swimming against the current. But if a number of us began swimming against the current, guess what? We could change the current. And that's what our supreme being, right, came to help us do. To find that good that's deep embedded inside of us, to climb out of that chromosomal garbage, that muck and mire that has us to the point where we even agree that certain disagreeable hats are fun. Right? And then we so smart, we lie to ourselves, say things like, oh, I would have do it this time, I'm good at it. You know, I would have to do it, so why you doing it? Something inside you is still fighting for surviving to be disagreeable. That's why you have these flashes of, I didn't mean to lie. I didn't mean to, deliberately mislead that person. And if you felt that, you're on your way to spiritual development because you have regret. Right? And yet, we had to learn to discern the difference between regret, true regret, and guilt. Guilty means, damn, I got caught, and that's why I feel this way. Regret means I really shouldn't have done that, and it bothers me. Why? Because your soul is maturing now to do the right thing. But you're right. That's why it's very difficult for us to do the right thing, because everything around us is the wrong thing. Unless we truly separate and live amongst only those who vibrate like we do. And we can't even do that because there's some of us who still have that inkling inside of them. I want to live with y'all, but only if I could be divorced. Or I don't want to live with y'all because I like to be a little shady. I prefer the shadow sometimes. You understand? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And we have love for them because we came here. When we first died there, it was all love. And that's why we didn't have that battle. It was not the battle between good and evil inside of us wasn't a thing. Because we were created in perfection. The formula for perfection. And upon the thought to kick that off, we were the byproducts of that. Until we began to mix in or get mixed in. And now that's inside of us. And the fight is to exercise it from us. Now on our counterparts world, if they, let's say they're disagreeable, right? And they accept that, who's on board with them? Because it's very easy for disagreeable to disagree. who disagree. That's not a problem for them. I'm not. I prefer to do this. Why should I work when I can just steal? That's how they move. I'm not saying that they're bad people, but they're counterparts. They are the opposite of us, but they are us in another dimension. So we have to perfect our beings and stand on our business to become the best versions of us. And that's why we needed a guide, a master teacher, and spiritual father. I see you looked out. I got your course.
I have
Don't
a
forget.
polite question.
Okay.
Could a counterpart die and it's only as a sanctuary, or if you die has it, it's like a counterpart, or is that against the laws of nature?
You know what? Because we dream opposites when they're dreaming we're up, things like that. I'm not sure if they were to pass away, would they actually just come into us? I don't know how that works. I'd have to check around and ask, but I haven't heard what would happen if they died first. Because they are us, I would think we would transition at the same time. Right? Just because we have to meet up. But let's say they transition first. They would sit to wait in the etherical plane until we transition, because they can't go on without us, because they're us. That just they come later. See, I know we can say we not keep going. I'll be outside help and see. No, I can see if there's something further that the master teacher has given, and I'm just not familiar with that moment. That's a good question. That question moved out?
Yeah, there's a carried one to
Overstood.
question.
Yes.
Or where could this be, myself, and I fall into?
Okay. Me, myself, and I is the body, spirit, and the soul.
That's still on this moment.
That's you. That's the triangle you. Me, myself, and I. Right? Let me give you an example. I'm going to do me. So I'm going to do what I want to do. That's me. Right? But when I come out into the world, I'm going to present another thing. Right? And the part of me that watches both those aspects is myself. The true self is watching me and I go out and tell lies. I want to do what feels good to me. But when I come out the house, I want everybody else to see me this way. In other words, it's how I see myself, right? How the world sees me, right? And how I really am. Me, myself, and I. In one existence right here. And your counterpart also has a me, myself, and I. When you learn how to streamline and line those up by living my way of the soul, they will not be in conflict with each other. That's how, then you really got that oneness within yourself. How hard is that to do when you know people see you a certain way and it feels good? So that's your representative. That's the guy that the female first meet. And that's the female that the guy first meet. If they're not really in tune and living by way of the soul and truly being true to themselves, you're not meeting the person that you're going to end up being with. You're meeting the person that set standards for society, or set standards to for lack of a better word, set standards to ingratiate themselves with you, which is subterfuge. Because that person who ate just a little bit when you first went, and after a couple of months she's cleaning the plate, or he, they chew and loud, they have certain habits that they'll let you into under the premise that you like you so much, you're not going to be mad or be offended by seeing the true me. But they didn't have the spiritual courage to show you the true them at first. That me, myself, and I is splintered until you learn self-mastery, where the term now leads from me, myself, and I to what you see is what you did.
Now, that's an honest question that's still back from me right now. I've been reading the book. Two. And we use this symbol, this sign, but peace.
Go back east, or unity.
So Baphomet has that sign also, but another one down.
Okay.
Well, why is that?
Well, if you were in Baphomet was a being of true unity, why we need two symbols? He said, unified with me, cannot disagree with this.
You want to show the people online what I just done?
Yeah, give me a report. I'll show it. Absolutely, McGarry. I know what you're talking about. Just exactly. Okay, good. What shoulders is?
That's
I got
not get beats.
I got you. All right. So we're talking about the curse on the goat people, or the race of Satan's children, or the devil's seed, and they raise the point image in Deuteronomy. So Baphomet. And let me see. Hold on. I'll make sure they can see it. They just turn and look.
That's still a bit simple, right?
For them, for them using it just how it looks. Look how you're talking about right here. I gotta do opposite. Yeah, right here. And then right there. See that? The two fingers? Yes. But you have to also realize that the disagreeable had taken the things that beat them and they use it in their own, they're not made, but they will use it in the way that they want it. Right? What I mean by that. We know in ancient times that this meant peace. Right? Then 6 ether beings came along and did this for peace, which is not unity. So you have this being back in that we use this and this. Right? But why would you need to? So yes, disagreeable beings take a lot of our symbols and then convert it to their nature. Another symbol would be, here's an order of what they call themselves, vampires. Why do they use the ankh? Some of them had symbols of an ankh and they call themselves creatures of the night, vampires, etc. I'll tell you why. The true meaning of the ankh is what, y'all? Everlasting, eternal life. Vampires live forever, right? Unless they come into what? The sunlight. So they took the real true meaning of it, the esoteric term, and they defiled it and used it for them. Well, we live forever too. But they live forever with conditions. We're unconditional beings by way of the soul. So you have to watch a lot of that because this will attract a peaceful being. And they'll say, well, if the ancient symbol of peace was this, what makes Baphomet bad? Because he wants to trap you and pull you off the path. They do that all the time. That's my point. That's my whole point. What they will do is take our symbols and convert the meanings to suit their purposes just to pull you off the path. And one more example, I know you may have another question. Another example is, No, I'm talking about how to catch us by sounds and tones, right? So why do, like the churches, for an example, use a lot of songs, right? Christian music, etc., because they know we are attracted to certain tones and certain beats, so they use that to actually entrance us. And then that's how they pull us off. No, it can't be bad. That's gospel music. But at the same time, the whole concept of religion is not suited for us by natural nature because it limits us. It tells us we don't have a connection with our Nasabi, who are already in us by way of the blood, but they tell us you don't. When that person has, what do they say? The person has passed away. The person is et cetera, and we're not supposed to talk to them. And when we do talk to them, they label us as what? Pagans or IU worshipers, et cetera. Yet there are a lot of these holy builders per se, and I'm bidding for light. When I say holy builder, I don't want to, offend anybody who may be watching. But when you talk about those places of worship in the realm of religion, do they not have pictures of saints and those stained glass windows? Yes. And they all say, call on the so-and-so, the patron saint of safe travels. Ours too. That's why we say, Aswasabele, travel safely. But where do you think they got it from? So they use a lot of that because inside of us resides that true being, that soul that hears that. And if we're not rightly guided, we'll succumb to that spell many of us had. And that's why the master teachers, they break the spell. And as his students, females and males, as his children, females and males, it's our job to spread the facts. And when you say spread the facts, they must go far and wide. And when it goes far and wide, it's actually removing the veil of ignorance. So that you have a clear path or top or opening to get back to who you truly are. I'm afraid that addressed the question as far as the Baphomet onto the rest of it.
And then also with the smart stripping, is that for seasons?
Right.
Or for us?
It was not for us, so per se, because it's called on the planet that don't have 4 seasons. But the swastika was not originally a part of Germany. They had like forces of nature in the original, right? Just the forces of nature. Then you say it's the 4 seasons where it applies to a rapper, right? then it meant a whole bunch of other things. And it's been converted not just to be a swastika. They have other what's the word? Other schools of thought. Other schools of thought that tie that into homosexuality. All right, you see if I can find that for you real quick. I should find the effect. Yeah, come.
Oh,
So I know it's in chapter 5, the Holy Tablets. I'll hold this up to this long. I want to find so I can build on. All right, so there are also other schools of thought, such as Claude, Borelheim, or Rael, and it's a symbol of the infinity where you would see the swastika. You have the emblem. So symbols of infinity, an emblem for daughters, also known as Dr. Maurice Boreal Rael, right? And it shows, again, the different, you can see it in the different side. I want to look for the actually swastika if I can find it. If not, I'm sit down, I'll find it, and we'll bring it up again. I'll put it in a group, everybody see it. Yes, it's not right here, so my apologies on that. But it's in the Holy Tablets, chapter 3 called The Scientist. It's in that. But again, we won't have a class.
I don't have a book on, I don't have a Holy Tablet.
Oh, you know?
No.
Okay. So I'll find before class is over, and I'll take a picture of it and send it to you, and I'll also put it in front of the screen so y'all can see that. With one symbol is it's a bunch of men, and the way they're formed, each man's nose is actually facing toward the next man's anus, and it's going like that. So some people actually distorted that to make it seem as it's homosexuality, as opposed to dealing with the forces of nature, as opposed to dealing with infinity, as opposed to dealing with all these other things. It gets watered down, and it'll take it. These 6 ether beings or disagreeable beings will take the purity of a sign or a symbol and convert it to them. Because inside our subconscious, we are attracted to that because somewhere what it really meant. Right? But I'll again, like I said, I'll look to find it. I thought of it in that section, but I like to think I'd rather know. So I'll find it for you, and I'll definitely send you the picture of his out with the verse or any other question.
Yeah, Roderick Willie. Rob man, what else, sir?
Yeah.
Before I came into right knowledge, I also felt protected and watched over.
Okay.
Was that feeling coming from my ancestors that I don't remember, letting me know that they are with me? So
all right, well, first of all, Robert Zamal, and yes, that is right, because your ancestors or the Nisab and the relatives are also protectors of it. So they will send you these signs and make them feel, them sending these inklings or any inspirations in the spirit inside of you, inspirations of comfort. The same way it felt as if your mother or your father was present and they made you feel comforted. So a lot of times they can sing those little flashes. And what will happen is if you're not out there doing everything that's agreeable, you'll have the propensity to receive that. But if you're not, you'll never feel that. You'll never feel protected. And that's why you act like you got to lash out. Not you personally, but I'm talking about anybody to use in that manner. They cut the gate or that communication or those senses of comfort from these guardian beings who only want the best for you, those that are benevolent. The malevolent ones will also do the same. Saying these things that make you angry for no reason, that make you want to snap off. When you have a choice, that we read the 9 ways, you have a choice to do what you should do or what you should not do. And you'll go with the should not because it pleases the me inside of you as opposed to the self that doesn't want you to suffer any indignities or anything like that. I pray that answers your question.
Yeah, another one said, I also have experienced feelings of negative beings wanting to harm me or cause me to harm myself.
Right? Right?
Was this also negative ancestors wanting to harm me? Is this just my thoughts or is it something more?
Okay. I hope tight. One more. I'm not sure. In you were in class earlier, we were reading about the 30 spirits and how it could be this real in your ancestry, but also those who they came in contact with. Another way it could be that it could be the external forces that look for openings of your continents to drop because they're lower realm beings. And if your continents drops from 9 to 7, 6 or below, they can actually grab you and send these thoughts. And we just read they can transfer themselves into you. But let's read what the master teacher talks about in the form of energy. All right, let's keep it one moment into that page. Okay, I'm going to start a little before it so we can all walk together. This is coming out of Action and Fact, number 29, Reflection and Projection. We're going to give you just introductions to the energy that we're talking about, what becomes of it, and then your questions specifically about we have those feelings of things trying to harm you or etc. That's what we said. To read that again to talk about how, and it also has feelings of.
It said, I also have experienced feelings of negative beings wanting to harm me, causing me to harm myself.
All right. Okay. Definitely spiritual energy going on right there. So now let's read what the master teacher Bob Deleuze says. All right. Verse 10. The master teacher Bob Deleuze says, yet energy, especially in the form of spirit beings, can be very deceitful, if not overstood by you. 11. Many times a person sees or thinks they see a person or thing in a vision, ghost, shadow, or orb while they dream. 12. Or see a specter, one would be, while they are wide awake and eyes open. It can be what is being viewed is right inside them. 13. An experience, a reflection, inside outward, a projection. 14. Although it may appear to be outside or projected outward or seen to originate outside their mind on its own. 15. The spirit or spirits within are doing the work of deception. 16. Your parents, your own 27 native DNA spirits of both sides of your family. 17. One or more can set out to deceive you or other spirits. You welcome by opening up your body gate by way of desires or religious beliefs of images of beings you believe exist. 18. And the inner spirits are not from outside you or the world of the dead, yet from right beside your mind, because you create them just as you do when you are dreaming. We'll skip the part about the womb, the mother, and how she brings you all, anybody she can come in contact that can actually be inside of. So, verse 20, your ancestors' blood flowed in your mother and grew with you in her womb. 21, and became a part of you, even now, past it going on and affecting your mind, body, and spirit. Then it goes on, the Bible goes on to say, and whomever, that's verse 22, whomever exchanged body fluids with while they were alive in this physical world. Let's skip on. We'll go a little further and then we'll stop. Now, so, verse 29. So, a person is or can be open to many spirits each day and night of their lives. That's why, as you explained, some days you feel comfort, other days you feel this discomfort in form of trying to hurt you. Your mind is telling them they're trying to hurt you, but they also are spirits who are trying to deceive you, right? Now, verse 30, they can be used and abused toward us. They can be used and abused by those spirit beings, good spirits and or evil spirits. 31. And from generation to generation, it builds up to the fourth generation before they are too weak to generate spirit powers to cross over. In the next few verses, I'm going to stop, but this is important, very important. All of it is, we're right here. It kind of gives us an idea of what actually can take place. Verse 32. Now, if these beings link to a person who welcomes their evil ways or has their own evil ways, 33, the being or spirit specters can use electric energies around that person to draw power and build their electric energy to cross over into the person or an object. And I'll stop at this one, 34. These beings affect objects in order to cause the person to fear, and is a powerful form of energy, which the spirit can then draw closer to this ground and affect things in and around that person. So some of those feelings of dread, like I'm in danger, whatever, the more you think that, how you react after that feeling / thought will give that spirit being more power to keep doing it until they're able to cross over into you. These spirits are going to have you transfer into them. One way that we could definitely stop that is to not accept the evil thoughts. We must have goodness of thoughts. The 9 ways, we're going to stick on that. We have to experience and live those 9 ways. And when we do that, they're all based on goodness, natural nature to our 9 etheric selves, and that way we can build the psychic self-defense as well as the spiritual self-defense to protect what? The true us by way of the soul. I pray that address your questions. So that could be how Nyago's oscillating feel is. You have any other question? All right. So, let's go to, really quick, chapter 6. I think you was in chapter 6 too. Chapter 6, the behemoth or human beast. So, I'm going to read where Barbara's talking about the swastika. So, this is chapter 6, tablet 15. And let's start going. Verse 238. Now remember, the holy tablets are, I want to say, there was the bridge that we must cross to our own salvation. It actually goes through religion and shows where it is not for us, and then it crosses over to right knowledge. So a lot of people, as the Baptist teacher said, it has to be updated. Why? Because we've been updated. So it has to be updated to fit where our mind capacity should be at now. But we're talking about the swastika, so we're going to read it. We'll start with verse 237. This figure has been referred to as a grammadian or grammadion. 238. In Assured Arabic, this mark be called Simat, S-I-M-A-T. In Aramaic Hebrew, it's called Uth, U-T-H. In Greek, the mark is called Karagama or Karagma, K-H-A-R-A-G-M-A-H, meaning a sigil, sign, mark, or grading. 239. In India, this mark will be the swastika. 240. The word swastika is derivative of swasti, which comes from su, meaning well, and the verb asti, which means it is. So the original meaning of swastika meant it is well. Not so today. We explained earlier, or derogatory meaning they were signed with this, from it is well to all types of what I'm going to talk about. Now, 241. According to Buddhist tradition, the swastika represents the first of the 65 marks which distinguishes the master's feet. I would stop and show the picture these times. Let's read and I'll have to show the picture. All right, verse 242. The Nandiwata is similar to a structure containing an intricate network of winding passages or maze. 243. The two soles of the feet of Buddha had two symbols of the swastika on it. 244. This symbol is held sacred by the Buddhists. 245. It represents the soles of the feet of Hides, the soles of the feet of Osiris. Osiris' body was mutilated into 14 parts. That's the Egyptian mystery school now. So even the Buddhists got it from them. Let's keep walking. 245. 246. Some say 16, talking about the piece it appears that Osiris was cut into. His head, his arms, his heart, his interior, his tongue, the soles of his feet, his bones, his arms, mentioned twice, his eyes, his fists, his fingers, his back, his ears, his body, etc. 247. The Anglo-Saxons called the mark Flyfot, which is F-L-Y-F-O-T, from the Norse Fiol, M-I-O-L, meaning foot. 248. This is significant of the numerous feet in illustrations depicting homosexuality. So they took what started out as Asar from the Buddhists, and now they're saying these feet denote homosexuality, and I'll show that picture. 249. The shape of the swastika symbolizes that the male is meant to work the earth and to submit and serve the sustainer. 250. And that the female is in the position to receive the uterus pains of childbirth and to breastfeed. So far, other than homosexuality, there's nothing derogatory being mentioned about this symbol, which means it is well. 250. And that 251. And the iron cross, which is derived from the swastika, symbolizes homosexuality. 252. Our noble servant Ahmad has prophesied that there will be people amongst his followers that will be coverers of the truth. 253. Though they bear the title Muslim and prostrate to El, the Most High, they are only using Islam to shield their diabolical innermost secrets. Now, let's go to the diagram just to show you different ones. And you'll see the swastika here. I'm getting kind of quick, but I'm going to show them, but I'm going to give you a book. All right? The first diagram is 75, which is this cursed design, red Yafata. Then under that is O Mahatma symbol. And if you look at it, right, you'll see the swastikas. You can see it, the 4 angles there. You have the feet right here. Right? That's this. Let me see. That's this there. Then you have more designs, which is different evolutions of the swastika, meaning it evolved from what the true original meaning was supposed to stand for, and this is how it evolved. Let's see if you can see that. See that? Different ones. See the swastika on top right there. All right? Just have a few more and we'll get back. The iron cross, that's what they call this evolution of the swastika. It's called the iron cross, which symbolizes homosexuality. This is how they draw and present it to their adherents. Y'all see that? Let me move it over. See that? And then you have other pictures right here on the next page. And that's that. Well, I want you to see that book now. I started reading over here, turn that page. Look at all the different what you need. How about from there? All right, now you go. Yeah. Kim. Hey, Kim. Right.
What relevance does our hair have on us if we dye or cut or grow it?
All right. Okay, we're talking about choices. Robert stated there was a time in our ancient lineage where we didn't have hair, i.e., when we were in the war, otherwise, right? Coming on land, there were certain parts in our evolution that required us to have hair. So when you talk about us as non-ether beings, if you right now, Akim, would take a piece of your hair and pull it and put it on a piece of paper, right? It would already look as it's curly. Apply a little heat, it will curl up into a knot. So what happens is our hair, the woolly hair that we have now in the pure non-ether state, and some of us are eighth ether now, then do miss it, but that hair will actually serve as an antenna that we would actually receive these higher waves of energy, right? So we were connected to the sun as well by the hair. Getting to the second part or furthest of your question is what happens if we cut it, to dye it,
What's the relevance does our hair have on us if we dye or cut or grow it?
Okay, we're talking about choices. You know what I mean? You can wear your hair any way you want to wear it. However, it should always be kept clean and healthy. Not too dry, not too oily. If you decide to dye it, then you're actually overlanded with chemicals. Just like some people who wanted to perm their hair back in the days or whatever. And they called it a perm, but it was only temporary, as a master teacher taught us over 40 years ago. They say permanent, but you got to keep permanent, then it ain't permanent because you got to keep doing it. So when you talk about dyeing your hair, they're actually damaging the hair, first from the hair part, but then that seeps into the scalp and the follicle, and they're damaging that. So if our hair, which it was and is, serves as an antenna or connection of waves of affirmation coming into us, and you start to dye it and damage it, aren't you cutting yourself off from that higher affirmation? Or at least receiving those waves of intellect? So the relevance is, since on land we had to evolve to be land dwellers, and that resulted in hair, because also hair came about by mixing with other beings too. That's why you see some people like us, we may have hair, and it may be long, short, however. You have other beings on the planet who have hair in places really should to be a lot of hair. They're hairy, like literally. And you have a condition called hirsutism, where there's an overabundance of hair all over the body, which is really fur. So when you talk about hair, I can only address it to us as non-ether beings because we have hair, or wabar. Everybody else has faram or fur because they have some type of animal DNA inside of them, which is not us unless we've been mixed with those beings. So when we talk about the relevance of your hair, it is exclusive. That's the word. Hair itself in the form of a bar is exclusive to the Nagar, the Nagaru Salau, the Negroid race. Any other species or race of people, they don't have hair. They have fur. So it's very important that we respect our hair and not damage it trying to be colorful, trying to do things like that. We don't need to do things like that. We should let our hair be natural, but always kept healthy and clean. If you can't do that, you might as well just shave it off because the bottles are still there on the inside under the scalp. Unless, again, you do things to damage it. All right, I pray that answered your question. I'll tell you.
Another question for hair.
Okay.
Nakti haha. Naktu.
Roll back.
For sure. What makes hair grow?
What makes hair grow? This guy. It still would be it would, honestly, to get to the root, what makes your hair grow is the telomeres of repetition, a recycling of the DNA or the genes that would make the hair grow. It is not prevalent in everybody. There's some Nagars who don't have abundance of hair, and it's not their ability to it. It's just the culmination of all the DNA that was in the matrix that made them doesn't have that ability to grow hair. So you can keyhole the growth of hair to be species wide or race wide, right? There's some people who have hair when they're young, but they go bald a lot younger. There's some people who have hair well into their 80s and 90s. That's still a part of the DNA structure and the telomeres of repetition and recycling of the DNA. So it is different from person to person or family to family, depending on how much or lack of mixture in the DNA. Some of them will have an abundance of hair well into, again, their elderly stage. So what makes hair grow again is the follicles, the strength of it, and how the DNA combination of that person has been, unless you add anything else on that. You? Okay, I'm just asking. All right. Yeah, move along here.
Say there's how it suggests a medium that talks about the hair. Remember that being? About the sign hair.
Let me see about. So I can find that. Hold on. Not to hold on, so I can find that. I think I did have one over here too. Skin roll. And you're talking about all the hair and patar. All right. All right, so this reading is entitled Pa Wabar Bu Pa Patar, P-N-R-T-A-R, or which means all seeing or divine eye. Okay, Wabar here. Wabar air is a symbol of light after death. The air, once it has grown out of the scalp, is not alive. It is a symbol of life, growth, and death. So we as Musbati, Sabian, or Wu-Sabats wear a ridged-style braid as females and as males. This in our tribe, race, and culture to represent long life after this life. The woman can wear her mid-style braid on her side extended down from her temple and can include beads. The male wears his mid-style braid extended down from his nape and no longer than 9 to 18 inches. Our Babar hair grows as knives or 9 gita out of the scalp. It's royal, noble. We are the holy humanoids who grow natural, kinky, nappy, curl hair as the first race from the Sand people or Little people, Bushmen of South Africa. So that is another explanation of our hair. And what helps it grow, again, it's just the final foods of the DNA combination of who we are. It is royally meant to be treated as such and not blatantly disregarded as something that you just want to play with. You all went through those phases when you wanted to cut it a certain way and style it a certain way. And when you get into adding chemicals to it, you're actually defiling the connection and what it represents. I pray that answer all questions regarding hair to the best of our ability today. All right, got another question? No? Okay. Any other bills on here?
Just.
All right, well, I have a slight pause. I'll continue reading the excerpts about the third spirit. We got a question, Macau?
Yeah. How did the serpent become duck?
Because this group of people wanted him to be that. Because he serpent or Satan, which means 6, we're talking about a being called Mengizida, because he foiled the plan of the Anuna or the Anunnaki to keep that newly made being in servitude. So because he told the plan, when this being that we'll call God, for the explanation of the conversation, said, "Do not touch any of the fruit from that tree. If you do, surely you will die that day." So Ningazida, who was a wise being called the serpent, when he was there, he was like, "You're not going to die. Who told you that? If you eat that, they're going to become wise." And sure enough, when they did partake of it, they became wise as those beings who had them then didn't want them to learn.
So whenever you wanted the legion, because the
Ningazida?
Negazeta is one. Now Satan is another person, isn't he?
No, that the being in the garden, right, has been given all these different attributes by the authors of that book because they wanted that being to be disagreeable. But through study of the etymology of the word Satan or Satan is really a number, really the sixth summit. We're talking about the Hutri. So now, if we refer to, I want to say serpent, who's about, this. Yeah. I appreciate the book that. All right. I wanna go to the serpent in the garden. Because your question is very good. The name of this book, this is the Actual Fact Series 33, called just the Serpent of Genesis chapter 3. Let's find out. All right. So now,
One question before you start, right? Because what's his name?
Ningazida.
Negazeta, right? And Lucifer, right? And two different people, right?
Two different meanings of the word. Absolutely.
Are they two different meanings of the word? Right. They represent the same.
No, different beings. Two different meanings as well.
So I'm saying, how was the devil considered a serpent? Not the serpent, I'm not referring to the serpent in the garden. How did they relate that word to the devil, to Lucifer?
It was done purposely. When you look at the meaning of Lucifer, you're talking about being of light. They also call Jesus a being of light. What does Jesus say? I am the truth and the light and the way. Oh, Lucifer, how have thou fallen, morning star? So why would you call why both of you beings who are opposing entities in the Bible, why would they have the same meaning in their name?
Because in our doctrine, the serpent is good.
It's a serpent is not a disagreeable being, correct? Because look at our ancient symbols. When you're looking at Ray right here, he has a serpent. The ringed serpent is a sign of intellect. How do you know that the serpent is not all a disagreeable being? Because the medical system, a medical symbol that deduces, has two intertwining serpents. So if the train of thought is to be accepted worldwide about the serpent being a disagreeable being, every time you go to a doctor who's taking an oath to do no harm, every time you go to them, should I say I'm going to the devil? I'm going to Dr. Serpent today. And he may save my life?
It may say.
Right. But I mean, we say may because they only practice in medicine. However, it's a symbol of intellect.
Right.
Follow that?
But see, they corrupted it, tried to make it something.
Oh, you're kidding. They always make evil fancy me and make bad things look evil.
Because they, people will say that, but we have the serpent on our crown.
That's right.
Right? They look at it as a evil. See, people don't understand.
Because they've been blinded by the light of religion.
Okay.
Right? But when you're looking at it, if you really look at the story, this book goes into chapter 3, right? When you're really looking at it, who lied? The being that said, you eat this, you're going to die that same day? Or the being that said, who told you that? If you eat it, you're not going to die. Who was telling the truth? And because when you get the three stories, yours, mine, and the truth, the ones who told the lie got mad at the one who told the truth. And because they're writing the book that we read, they're going to make that person be a bad guy. Bring that up to modern time before we read. Bring that up to what's happening right now. as the master teacher came with the truth. So false slaves will perish. The ones who are telling the falsehoods got mad at the one who's telling the truth and make him out to be the bad guy. It's the same plan, but because many of us have fallen in etheric potency, we're forgetful beings. And we will always accept the recycled lie because you don't remember the last plan, but it's the same plan. So when you peek the plot, or when you peek the plan, you see the plot. They do it over and over. They recycle the lies, and we forget. And the drasm is a lot of the things that's happening right now, right? The master teacher wrote about over 30 years ago. They were hoping that those of us who were there 30 years ago would be out the way and would remember that they're now talking about stuff he taught us 30 years ago. And was made to look crazy for doing so. Well, who's crazy now? Because we're still standing on the truth and the actual facts. They had to recycle their lies and make it appear to be true, as if they came up with the stuff that we were taught over 3 decades ago. You follow that train of thought? All right, let's go. Verse 3. When you look, that's true. The master teacher Bhavya teaches us in verse 3. When you look up the word for serpent, you see the word nakash, the noun form, on the Hebrew scrolls number 5175, from the root word Hebrew scrolls number 5172, nakash, meaning divine, whisper, hiss, enchanter, to learn by experience. Verse 4. You also find this word in the Arabic Quran, chapter 114, verse 4, as al-Khanas, meaning the withdrawing one who is a whisperer. 5. So they knew in both the Torah and the Quran of this being. Even in 6, even in the book of Revelations, you see the serpent in Revelations 12:9, and know what it says. Verse 9, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, said it. There, you see both dragon and serpent as the same meaning. And now, to see who this dragon serpent is, you must read Ezekiel chapter 29, verse 2-3, which reads, verse 2, son of the Hebrew Strong's number 120, Adam or Adam, I accept that face against Pharaoh. Hebrew Strong's 4428, Malak, M-A-L-A-K, meaning royal one, ruler, king of Egypt, and prophesy. Hebrew Strong's 5012, Naba, meaning predict, against him and against all of Egypt. So he's talking about how they came about. But let's go a little further and see how they just decided, like, let's go ahead and rock out to make everybody believe the serpent is a bad guy. Now, verse 26, the name for the Lord, Hebrew Strong's 136, is Adonai. From Hebrew Strong's number 113, Adam, as meaning controller, master, owner, sovereign, of human divine, as seen above. Listen to that. In the Bible, you use the words Adonai and Adam. Where'd they get that from? Third page, find out. 27. This name comes from the Egyptian deity Atul, Atul-Ray, or Adon Roy, Genesis chapter 16, verse 13, as seen in this verse, and she called the name of the God that spake unto her. So the point being, on verse 28, the change in the name comes from what is called sound shifts, as mentioned by Mustafa Kadala and Exiled Egyptians. 29. In an attempt to translate from one language to another based upon sound, it sometimes causes a change in the letters, and letter may be replaced incorrectly with a different letter, as sometimes happen in pronunciation into dialects, then go on to the correct letters, etc., etc. So, if you read on, it talks about how this Tanin is translated as dragon, certainly has a web. The master, he goes through all of that. So you have to really go through it, check the Hebrew Strong numbers that he's given, right? And as you go through it, it's talk about different organizations that did this, how they came up with it. And then let's go just one more and we can move on, unless there's another question. So, No, excuse me, let's go to 76. So Bami Anu says, this is why we have a talking serpent in Genesis chapter 3, verse 1 through 14 from the sea. And he was wise. What First Samuel chapter 5, verse 2 said. That gone people Strong's number 1712. A man from sea caught fish, 77. When you look up the Chaldean Hebrew for serpent, Nakash, Hebrew Strong's number 5175, he whispers the Kadash hat secrets to those worthy. 78. Now, just who is this serpent man in Genesis chapter 3 who spoke with Hawa, Awa'a, Tawu, Eve? You know, he was born before Abi. He was from Makmat, Egypt. He was an enchanter. He was the wisest of all creatures. He lives at the Nahar Nayal, or Nile River. He was called the dragon. He was lied about by the Adamites by Haran. He was also called the serpent. He was also called the brass cockle. 79. Now, find out which wise teacher in ancient Egypt was known as a serpent ruler, healer. We only have to look at Renan at or names in Egyptian hieroglyphics to look for a snake in the name. The Ibis, Thresh Kirlis, Apiapicus, symbol, deity, thought, Tahuti, Tahuti, Tahuti. Let's stop. I'm going to show them the figure, but let's stop. We already mentioned that it was Ningazinda, right? Ningazita would be the Sumerian names of this being. This being, this wise one, this teacher, this healer, had different names depending on the culture that's talking about her. So Ningazita would be Sumerian, but the Hutwi would be the ancient Egyptian. And ancient Egypt predates Sumerian culture. Both were good record keepers, but ancient Egyptian talks about it. So we ask, who would be the one that has the snake in his name? So whoever has his book at home or here, simply go to page 13 and I'll show you. Let me see, make sure I got the page right. Okay, so we're gonna go like that. See that? The hieroglyphics of the Hutwi, and he has the snake. And look at the letters before I take it down. Just look. You can see that. The Hutwi. You see the snake, you see the double chromosomes, right? You see the picture of the ibis bird with the ankh. You have the tweet, the Hutwi. You see the T, you see the W and the U. All right? Now I'll just stop at the next verse. So, verse 8. So now we have who is the Hutwi, or even called Tahuti, or even Thoth, who is from the stars, from Masa, Orion, and Mazbat, Sirius. We'll stop, because right there it goes into further. So if you don't have the scrolls, and you have friends who are in religion who want to get this, so you can walk them through it conversationally first, because you don't want to bash them, but you want to show them, even in their own books, how they mistranslate things purposely. There was a reason for doing that. The same reason they will tell untruths about great beings when they come. It happens over and over and over again. The Bible and the Quran are no different from mistranslating words by way of what? Sound. Sound shifts, right? But you have to be able to explain that to somebody who's willing to go and do the research and look up what Hebrew Strong's number 5175, 5172, 114, all of these things. You have to be willing to do that. Why? Because you're now dealing with your soul. And if your soul is not important enough to you to study and look it up, why would it be important enough for the person writing the books that's filled with untruths? I pray that addressed the question. We have any more questions? All right, he went down with fast flats. Tomorrow more, he said that. Yeah. Okay. All right, hold on. Let me find that right quick. Sorry, so let me stop that right there. Let's go down. Okay, so is Akim's question, does hair hold energy, or before that? That's it? All right, so yeah, Akim is asking, does hair hold energy?
Absolutely. Well, good energy, bad energy, sting energy, and everything.
Right.
Air can hold in it. Yeah. I mean, remember, everything is energy. So if it's physical, has energy. If it's spiritual, goes and so everything in your on your hair that's made up of energy called atoms also has energy within itself.
Right. I got the next question. All right. So Akim's next question: does it hold energy or retain energy from contact?
Yeah. With success, everything is energy, right? So let's take, for instance, let's just say scent, right? Scent is a form of energy, right? So if you don't take care of your hair, right, and you don't wash it or you don't clean it, it will hold in that negative energy, right? Unless you can release it by simply washing, right?
That's right. All right. He has another question. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No. Let me know when you finish. You sure? All right. So the follow up to that was, or retain energy from contact, which you said. Then he says, can that, which is that energy from contact, affect our mood or emotions?
That moment. Because if it smells bad, you're going to be moody, emotional, and stuff. Use. Now, some cultures, right? Some cultures believe that hair holds energy another way. And sometimes they cut their hair. There's Indian culture. Sometimes they cut the hair to get rid of it. And you even see it in some African women. When they're going through a phase in their life, then they say, okay, I'm going through a change, and they'll cut their hair off. Just as a symbol of going through a new stage in your life, you know?
All right. And we have another question. Let me see.
Go and just touch it. Since we on the hair topic too. Also, if you go to purity and neatness, you could see what there's a question in there about the dye as well, just to add on.
About the what?
Dye, hair dye.
Okay. Purity and neatness?
Yeah, because Mercer have expressed that you can dye your hair, just don't use commercial dye. You can use henna.
That's right.
Henna is natural. Because you want to dye your hair, use henna. That's most sisters. And then also, when you dye your hair, it's two types. If you dye your hair, like say you dye your hair black, that means you're adding color. If you dyed it like blonde, we're stripping color if your hair is already black, right? So when you strip your hair, if you use mercury chemicals to strip your hair, because henna doesn't strip your hair, it coats it. We're saying it coats it for a certain amount of time, just like when sisters or brothers do henna on their body. It coats it with a color, right? So that color is only going to stay there for so long, right? Also, when you dye your hair, even the word dye is phonetically D-Y-E, but I-E is still the same phonetic word. So it's killing it. When you use commercial dye, you're killing the hair. So when you strip your hair and say, let's say you get blonde, that means you have to strip the melanin from the hair to get to the color. You know that the base root of your hair is what? Keratin. Keratin is yellow. You know what I'm saying? So when you see an Nagaru do that, you know that because they're messing with their body matrix at that point, stripping the hair, stripping the darker color to look like another race, that array is going to affect their mouth because they're going to feel the need to even act like those. You know what I'm saying? So there's just a lot of things you got.
All right. We have a question from Jamal Roger Watson. He's stating, I used to hate the fact that I was born part Puerto Rican because everybody in my family was darker than me. I love my family and my African side more. Is that wrong to feel like that?
First, we got to understand that you got two types of Puerto Ricans, right? You got the European ones, and you got the African. And you could tell them by phenotypical features, right? Puerto Ricans, the black Puerto Ricans, most of them, they don't always have to be light skinned or dark skinned. You know what I'm saying? They could be either, right? When I say these are the white ones, those are the ones that you can literally look at them and tell that they're European. You know know what I'm saying? So what you're calling a Puerto Rican today, the ones that we know that's from our seed are African people. They always have now. What happened was certain Europeans mixed in with the African seed and producing what they're calling Puerto Ricans. Because the word Puerto Rican is not even a race. You know what I'm saying? It's a nationality based on the nation they're from. That's a particular area that they was born in. And the word Puerto Rico means what? Rich, poor. So it's some type of trading line. So now, it's when I know from all my life growing up in certain communities, Latinos and blacks always identified as the same people until they get jobs. You stop. We get jobs, these black Latino, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, those are the same people at the end of the day. Blacks and Latinos are the same people. And we want to make that known, especially in our culture. When I used to get books back in the days from the master teacher, he used to always write in the books. It wasn't just Negaros. It was Black/Latino, because he was talking to those people because they're the same people. We shouldn't let the names separate us, or even the phenotypical features, because we think because a person is light-skinned with loose curl hair that they're not African. No, most people who are Latino are African, and they're African descent, whether they want to accept it or not. And us being students of the master teacher, we know who our people are. And guess who else know who our people are? Racist white people. Mm-hmm. Because they'll look at a person who say, I'm Latino, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm not black, I'm not African, and laugh because they already know you're a black person that speaks Spanish. You know what I'm saying? So Latinos are black people who speak another language, and the genes may have been a little more mixed with number. Even blacks in America today are mixed as well. Because no, most blacks in America do not look like the African pig. They do not look like, you know what I'm saying? They look just like everybody. They're mixed, just like the average Puerto Rican. And when you go to Africa, you'll see tribes in Africa who have features where they go say they're this. They'll say, I'm Nigerian. And they'll see you in America and be like, you're not African. Even though you're claiming it, because they feel like they're purer on that side and you're not Vel. You understand that? But the reality is black is black, African is African, no matter where you at. You know what I'm saying? So Latinos, Puerto Ricans are Africans, whether they want to accept it or not. So it's a good thing that you was in a family where you was leaning towards your opposite side, because I know that in Latin families, there's a lot of things there's racism or colorism that goes on, because you get taught certain things. Like, for instance, you could get taught something like, there's sometimes some of the Latino family will teach their children who don't come out with the curly drop in hair, like, don't have babies with somebody black. So your babies don't come out con pela mal with bag hair. You know what I'm saying? They'll tell them that. So they're inadvertently telling them, don't mix with someone who has woolly hair. Right. Make sure the person has straight or more curly hair. And these are things that happen. So in the Latin community, you'll find those who acknowledge their African heritage, and they will call themselves Afro-Latina or Afro-Latino. You know what I'm saying? But in reality, most of the people of Puerto Rico and all the Spanish-speaking countries are from the Daras, all black people. You know what I'm saying? Except for the ones who invaded. The Europeans who invaded will now call themselves Puerto Rican, or now call themselves, what, Cubans and all these other names. And remember, even with the non-ether hair, most of us Nangaros today don't have non-ether hair. Right? Most of us don't have it. That's really genuinely, non-ether hair is real curly hair. Some people think curly hair is when you look at a loose curl. Yeah, those are curls. Remember, it's different ethers when it comes to hair. You have non-ether. Non-ether is real curly. It curls up many times. Those, when you look at black people, they call them DDs and bang your head. That's non-ether all over the head. You know what I'm saying? You may look at the Sans people, they have 9 ether, right? Then you have, after 9 ether, you have 8 ether hair. It forms the number 8. It curls like this. You know what I'm saying? Then you have 7 ether hair. 7 ether is wavy hair, separate. It just keeps on making a wave. Then you have 6 ether. 6 ether is just straight hair. You know what I'm saying? We know that Europeans have created their whole full concept and they call woolly hair like 4C, something like that, right? They have their own hair chart, but we have our own. And our hair chart goes from 9, 8, 7, and 6. Simple. You look at the hair and you can see what it is. You understand? So.
Could we classify blacks just based on non-ether? Say you're a non-ether hair or woolly hair, you're black.
We would say it's beyond the hair. It's not just the hair texture, because we understand that, like I said earlier, most black people don't have non-ether hair. Not even us in this room. I don't see no one in this room with non-ether hair. Right? So what happens is, we can't just go on the hair, but you can go on just the term non-ether. So all Nagaros that acknowledge who they really are non-ether beings on this planet. Because non-ether is not just the head, it's beyond the head, it's in the root of it, who you are. So we could see a person who have something that look like straight hair, and they could still be from the Nagaro family. They could still be a Nagaro. Because in this day and time, with all the mixing, Nagaros now have 7 ether, 8 ether, 9 ether, 6 ether, on what appears to look like 6 ether. You know what I'm saying? So it's not really based on the hair now. And then it goes into your mentality, because you could be a person who say, you black or you're a part of the black family, and your mentality says otherwise. Then you find somebody else who doesn't look like what you consider black, could look Mexican or whatever, and they more black than this person will look black when you talk to them, because they more black conscious, whereas this person who's black as night is not black conscious at all. You tell them some black stuff like, no, that's not me. You be like, okay, cool, Also,
Well, do you think seed mixing has caused that type of mindset? Well, aside from being under alternative programming, but is seed mixing part of the cause of that as well?
Yeah, definitely for the separation. So, yes, if people didn't mix in with us to create the different phenotypical features that we have today and the different hair textures, then we will all look the same. However, because of the much mixing, and we look different now, people think because they look different, they're not from that same family. So a person may look like what we're calling a Latino, they may feel like they're not black. And then some ignorant blacks also who may look at a Latino and go, they're not black. You know what I'm saying? Because they also don't know who their people are. But we understand who our children, who our family are. When we see them, we can see them. Just if you're a Melanite, you're from the family. You know what I'm saying? You're from the family, probably down the line, but you're still a part of the family, still a part of the black family. So definitely, Latinos are a part of the black family.
No questions at the moment. We'll you in the room.
So what about the modern day Caucasians?
What about
Without males?
are they part of the family?
Yeah.
Some of them are. We not gonna pinpoint them, but some of them are. Especially the one, here it goes. The original, the ones who come from the Pleiadians, right? Because we know the Pleiadians have silver hair, pale skin. And their first offspring would have been the Nordics. Those are your blonde-haired blue eyes. Then when more mixtures happened, the blonde-haired blue eyes started mixing in with Africans. And that produced the dark hair, dark eyes. You know what I'm saying? So those who have dark hair, dark eyes, they are part of the black family. But they can't say the M-word.
Yeah, still can't do that, right?
We should even say, but they part of those ones are, if they acknowledge that they are too. Because it becomes like a mulatto child. We teach in our culture, but child is a mulatto. they could choose who they want to be. They could choose to be a part of black or the white family. So you'll find a lot of mulattoes that's in our family where they will choose who they want to be. Like for instance, you look at let's say celebrities, Drake, is he black or white? He chooses black. You know what I'm saying? You can see what he chooses, right? Or what he do. Who else is a mulatto? There's many mulattoes out there, and some chose the other side, where they more need to listen.
Andrews.
What that?
Look at Andrews. She says, she got this Rihanna. She made all of us be, commentating.
Yeah. You also got that other commentator guy, that's from South Africa. He chose the black side too. Oh, because it don't under the black or the Serpent.
Yeah, true.
He chose black. So there's many of them that's celebrities that chose the side they didn't want to be on. Right. I think what's that girl? She was what's Khalifa white? What's her name?
Pine Blue.
Amber Rose. So she used to choose black, but she chose white now, right?
I was just white.
Amber Rose's girlfriend now.
Girl,
Yeah.
I'm so lost. Cause I look at her like just like,
So a lot of those choose what side they want to be on. You know?
true. I'll be better.
There you go.
Listen, boy. Take it easy. You go. Like, I ain't food. She's my friend.
And how you could tell, even with the Latinos and black family, some of us who are considered English-speaking newbies, right? Some of us have children. And if our children went into a Spanish-speaking community, they'll speak Spanish too. But that child who be like, I don't speak Spanish, I'm black. Even though there are people there probably be like, talking to that person in Spanish, thinking, hey, you sure you're not Latino? And you're like, no, my parents are black. So even some of us produce children who look Latino. You understand that? And it's only because it's the same family. It's just that these ones grew up in an area that speaks Spanish. These ones grew up in an area that speaks English. That's it.
So over there in Africa, when they start speaking different language, right? You know, their language has changed. We're not just talking about Spanish. Or some of them that's in Africa don't consider themselves to be, well, you know, their race changing, and not the race, their nationality, the nation where they're from, Nigeria or Laos. They don't consider themselves as one. You know, they're different. Liberia is different, brother. Morocco, Senegal is different from Ghana.
Right. That's a lot. That's why it's called Africa. See, the word Africa from the Arabic word farqa or Afrikia, which means to separate. So since Europeans invaded that land, but they're now for Arabic, and it's never called Inuit. I mean, not Inuit. It was never called Alkiba land.
Right.
Right. But Africa means to separate. So the colonizers who went over there and separate the landmass, because even Liberia, what's the capital of Liberia? Monrovia. Who in that named that? European president. Monroe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So Africa is colonized. When you go to Africa and people are speaking French, that is not an African tongue. You know what I'm saying? That's some Frenchmen and women who came over there. Now those people are speaking that language. So our people in Africa are separated by language and borders now. You know what I'm saying? Africa is just like how we are here. But just imagine having to go to New York and have to show a passport from New Jersey. That's what they do in Africa. Because countries are right next to each other, just like we are right next to New York. New York and Jersey, it's right, we could just drive, right? Well, same thing in Africa. You could be two countries are right next to each other. And you need a passport to go from this one to that one. Because they separated. Now, when Africa becomes a united Africa, they need what we have, which is Wu-Sabat. So they could be united in one mind.
Right.
Now, and it's happening slowly because some African countries right now are pushing out certain European concepts out of their land. And there is some Africans who do want to make it a one land type of thing where it's all just one land. You know what I'm saying?
the European just put the borders there, different countries.
They gave the mindset to our people to do that type of things, because that wasn't how Africa was before. Many landmass, that's how it is today. It wasn't like how it was back in the days. What you're calling Egypt today wasn't just that small area that you see today. It went down, it went further down. You know what I'm saying? To Nubia. That's why we go to Nubia, because there's pyramids there. That's right. Because that all was Egypt, or what they're calling Egypt today, or Kemet, or Tamaret. You know what I'm saying? But they created borders when the Arabs took over that part, right? They created borders to say, no, this is only Egypt now. And they call it Egypt because what the Egypt means. What do Egypt mean?
Get bigger.
It comes from the Egyptian word hook up a top. You know what I'm saying? Even words like Ethiopia, not the African word. All these words of Africa, these names are not African. They don't originate with the land. Ethiopia is not an African name. It's not an Ethiopian name either. But that's what the people will call. It's Greek. You know what I'm saying? So you can just look at people's name and tell who their conquerors were. You know? There's a point and place in Africa called Côte d'Ivoire, right? Côte d'Ivoire. That's not an African name. You can tell who did that. You know exactly? French. Like these are in Asia. Huh? That's the Ivory Coast. Yeah, oh no. So these are the types of things that's happening to that land. So, like I said, Africa even needs to be educated in a way that they can fend for themselves. Because Africa don't really need no help from no outside countries. Africa is the richest land in this planet, buddy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If Africa cut off its borders to everybody in the world, it's going to be a problem. Especially to European countries. You know what I'm saying? Because there's certain pipelines that run in Africa just to supply European countries. And if Africa shut off certain things, certain countries ain't going to have oil, ain't going to have a lot of things. Ain't going to have diamond, ain't going to have tires, because all of our tires in America come from Liberia, right? You know what I'm saying? So ain't going to have diamond, ain't going to have onyx, iridium, the coltan that makes the iPhone and all these things work is in Africa. You know what I'm saying? But Europeans found a way to conquer and control these areas of Africa. All the natural resources that's used to power the whole world, they make sure they control those areas in Africa. You know what I'm saying? And the Africans will let them do it. Because just like you have here in politics with government, it's the same thing in Africa. They'll make a few Africans rich who probably runs this particular area. Let's say the coltan is in this area. They're like, okay, who runs it? They'll go and befriend those Africans. You know what I'm saying? And make sure we have some type of monopoly. We'll make y'all rich so that we have access to this. They'll say, hey, Liberia, you guys produce rubber for us to make these ties. Let us get a 100-year contract and we'll make your people rich right here. And the Africans will give it to them. Or you go to places, even in the Caribbean, is the same thing. Go to places like Jamaica, where the Chinese run the tolls. They own it. How you have the Chinese own the tolls in Jamaica when that's the land of black people? You know what I'm saying? But someone is getting rich off of it. A small group of people is going to get rich who made the deal with them. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, our people just wanting to be so much a part of them makes us lose so much. When the whole thing is, if we stick to ourselves and just do our own thing, we could be rich on our own.
Running without you.
You know?
But they also play certain rules too. If you don't conform, they might just say, you know, if you don't agree, you just don't bury you. You know, so you know, how do you have a counteractive mindset to that? Or they just go to somebody else to get it done. But yeah, primarily they might say, hey, if you don't conform, you know, this is gonna be the end result.
That's when I say, like, the same thing like Malcolm X said one time. When it gets to the point that you touch one black person and all black people will respond, then no one will do things like that to us. But the fact that white people are separated worldwide and you could beat one of us up in front of all of us in the same neighborhood. Cops could beat up a black person right now. You know what we gonna do?
We'll record it.
Video on.
Wow.
No one's gonna touch the cop. Why? He beat up one of our brothers and sisters. Oh, he gonna shoot us. So what? He can't shoot all of us. But we ain't on that mental level yet. When we get to that level where we're not afraid of anyone outside of anything, right? And we protect our people. One of us affected, all of us affected. And we start reacting, and they'll treat us a little different. When we go to their neighborhoods, they bother us whole junk. Like, what I mean by that is this. If you ever went to let's say, a neighborhood of Jebusites, that's who they call themselves Jews today. You went into what their communities are. You look suspicious. They have neighborhood police, where they're not real cops, but they're like security for their community. First thing is someone's going to approach you like, hey, wait, what are you doing here? We don't do that to other races when they come in our community. We don't say, hey, what's the white man? What are you doing here? Who you here to see? We don't bother. We just let them come and walk through and mosey along and do what they want to do. But when you go to their communities, they're stopping you and they're watching you. And eventually, they think you're going to do something. They're going to call the cops. So, yeah. I'm saying, okay, there's a black guy. He's weird. I don't know what he's doing here. Let's come. And the cops are going to come and check you now. So they'll use the authority. These are things that we don't do. Because one thing for sure, we don't own our communities. See, them, they strategically go to communities and purposely say, we're going to buy up this whole area. We don't do that. Even though you see black people in communities and say, hey, this is predominantly a black area, how do you know we really want it? Who's cool at the corner store? Is it black people? About the grocery stores, is it black people that own it? No. So the people that can feed you can also what? Starve. So you don't run your own community. You don't own the vital things in that community that you should have a hand in, where if something happened, your people is good. But most of the communities that we call ours is not ours. We just tenants. So to go back to your question, once white people start to look at each other as family and really have love and unity for each other and have had that real divine love, can't nobody mess with any one of us to get away. Even on jobs, you see, they paid us one more money, and that would be also called supervisor.
That's right.
Hey, and in a job setting, you should want to help out the supervisor, because supervisor is there to what? Just to manage the workers. So there's something you got paid to do at a job. Just do your job. But sometimes you got people that's on your back purposely being belligerent just because they have a position, because they don't know how to rule, And they feel like being a harsh ruler works better than being a kind ruler. And a lot of times they hire people who are harsh rulers on purpose. Let's pray.
Elon Musk.
Yep, he acting out. How much time do you really see a manager or a senior manager really is nice? It's Rick. They usually are asked on purpose. Right. So they hired them on purpose to be like that. And when you see one of us in that position and you're conscious, you'll get mad because like, yo, you're doing this to your own people. What happened is in the corporate world and making money is like all emotions are gone. And the only people care about is the job. That's it. You don't like it, you leave. That type of mentality is, that's how that works.
No question.
Yeah, I guess separation, not integration, right?
Hmm?
So I guess separation, not integration.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. Integration was a hoax to Hobby, because all it made us do was become acquainted with the enemy, made us love the enemy. So when we start integrating with the concept, before integration, there was segregation. Segregation, we knew who our enemy was, because they made it known. This water fountain is for white people only. This is for blacks. this story here is for white people. Don't even come here. We had to do. Yo, they did some psychological work on us because they made us go through cities. Meaning, we wanted to be a part of them so much, we sat in their restaurant and get hit over the head. We want to be a part of so much, we went on their buses, right? Started creating our own. And they was watching us. You got to think to yourself, you watching the white people fiend so much to be a part of white people's society that we would get beat up in front of the whole world just to be a part of their stuff. And that's sick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That means they had us. They took the shackles off of our wrists and our hands and put them on our mind.
Yeah.
Well, we actually wanted to be a part of them after they was our slave master. You think you could ask a Jebusite, a Jew, to go work for a German? He will never do it. Because he knows what the Germans did to his people. So he ain't going to want to work for them. How about that? And remember, the Holocaust was for a short time. It's for about 5 years. They're changing the numbers now. They're making it look like it was 10, 11 years. You know what I'm saying? On social media. But it was about 5 years. The real Holocaust, right? Of white on white crime, right? One German and one who called himself a Jew, right? When you look at what they call slaving, which really was kidnapping, that was 400 years. How come this person went through 5 years of torture of his own people and don't want to work for his people who tortured him? But you take the person who's been under captivity and harsh and brutal abuse for 400 plus years, will fight to be under the same oppressor, will fight for the religion of the same oppressor, which will go to a church that pray to a Jesus that looked like the oppressor, will go to a mosque and pray to or acknowledge a Muhammad that looked like the oppressor. Because we ain't forget about the Arab slave trade as well. You know what I'm saying? So black people in general has been demonized so badly and brain dirty, because it ain't brainwashing, so badly that we want to do anything to be a part of our oppressor. We have a saying, we love the devil. Why? Because he give us nothing. Right? And it seems like black people love to be abused. They love all the people that abuse us the most. We know that Trump is a racist, but you find black people like, yo, that's my president. This racist is your president. Oh, bad, cool. What, are you a fool or something? Trump is for his people. That's cool. All the white presidents was for the people at the end of the day, including the black. The black presidents was also for the white people. Because at the end of the day, being a president is what? A job, right? A lot of times people be mad at celebrities, and I always tell them, don't be mad at the celebrity. Why? Because you do the same thing at your job. Just that their job is public. What I mean by that is, you don't go to your job and talking about right knowledge at your job, right or wrong. If your job is to be a police officer, you go there to police, right? Not to teach. You go there to police. If your job is a mail person, your job is to deliver the mail. You don't go there to teach, right? So when a celebrity is paid to be an actor, and his endorsements, or a basketball player, or a rapper is paid to put demonic music out there if you're a part of the industry. That's what you mean to do, right? Anything outside of that, that's not what it's about. That's not what you're getting paid for. A basketball player is paid to play ball, not to talk. You understand? That means when we want you to talk, it better be about the game. When we talk about the black struggle, that's not what you hired for. You know what I'm saying? If you work at the airport, whatever your position is at the airport, is to do what your position is prescribed to do. So when you look at a celebrity, we may say they're sellouts, but in a sense, most black people who work for job is a sellout. Because there was a comedian who's I forgot his name, but he gave an example of how black people act when they're at work and when they off of work, right? Because remember, when you at work, you're working for what? A pay what? Check. A paycheck. So at work, you're in check. So you act in a certain way in order to what? Maintain your job. But once you leave work, you become who you already was. Because you can't do the things that you was doing at work because you're not paid to do that at work, right? So celebrities are just a higher paid. Most people are lower paid slave. Celebrities are higher paid slaves. That's all. So when you see them not wanting to talk for black things, black issues, it's because that's their job. They're not paid to do that. They can't stand on your side, even though the cameras is on them all the time. They just can't do it. You know what I'm saying? If they could, they would. If they really wanted to help a black organization, they'll do it. Under the table, like, hey, Farrakhan, this for you, yo. I can't say no, but I got you. You know what I'm saying? I know he was hey, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, there's so many celebrities as a part of us, but they won't say it. And we not done exposing. Let them keep their job, you know what I'm saying?
So how do you change that? How can we try?
Doing your own thing. You got to do your own thing. As a black kid, you got to stand on your own. That means you have to have your own stuff. Back in the days, we had our own baseball league. Why we don't have it no more? We had the Negro League. We could change the word Negro, but we still had our own league, though. You know what I'm saying? And just like we had our own Negro League, could have our own NBA. You know what I'm saying? Our own football. We are still predominantly the players, the workers. So you got to think. NFL is predominantly black guys, right? And getting hurt in about 5 years, most of them is hurt, right? If their contract didn't cut early where they don't got no real money no more, right? Because most of these guys go in there with no financial advisors, so they end up blowing their money while they happen. So the NFL is full of us. The NBA is full of us. Baseball is full of us too. Why is it that they don't come together? I mean, I'm talking about the NBA play. Why their mindset is that like, okay, Michael Jordan, all these guys to say, yo, let's come together and form our own league. Why don't do that? Why don't the baseball players, all the black ones, say, let's form our own league? And who cares if nobody want to watch it? Or don't want to watch it? What happens is, you think people was watching the NBA just because it came on television? No, it had to have been something over time. Even the baseball thing. It was a time when it was two baseball leagues, the majors and the Negro League. And those old timers will tell you the Negro League was way better, brother. But how come it's phased out? Because we started to go on their side and work for them instead of staying in our own realm and do our own thing. So when we get to the point when we could do our own thing and stand on our own, the fact that the NBA is still popular and the baseball league is still popular and the NFL is still popular, with us predominantly being the workers, that means that people actually coming to see who? Us. And if they're coming to see us, we got to be smart and say, yo, since people coming to see us, all we need is a collective unity in all those arenas and do our own thing. Just like the acting. We have actors that say they can't get jobs, black actors. And every year there's a new white actor that becomes a millionaire, right? Then why don't all the black directors come together and form their own thing and make movies for black people and just box out everybody? The same way how Tyler Perry did it. But that's one. Make a whole bunch. Have your own stuff where you can make your movies how you want to make it. You know what I'm saying?
It's like Kanye, when we start doing stuff or talking like that or acting like that. The unfortunate reality, I guess, is that, they're gonna, they shut Kanye website down because they be selling shirts and swastikas. Me and Miss Mike were talking about that this week, about the whole swastika, and, that's how he came up mentioning that. Yeah, it was originally our symbol. He might have been selling it with that mindset as his intention for selling it, but because a certain group of people decided, hey, well, we don't like it. Yeah, they shut their website down. So it's like everything is running through them. Even in the music industry, when Herb Gotti, Suge Knight, and Jay Prince tried to start a whole distribution label, they kind of, Herb direct, rated by the feds. They experienced Suge Knight got locked up. Like, you experience certain amount of difficulty, so it's going to take a certain type of swag and energy or movement to really be able to, do your thing without being high on the radar.
Yeah, and it's gonna take a certain amount of unity and muscle. Cause don't think that the music industry don't have muscle. They have muscle that they just don't show to the public.
You got killers.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's pop. If you was a person that's out there talking and you like, let's say you're a Kanye West type, You're supposed to be a part of an organization that backs you. Like, for real, that's really rolling with you. Because we know that the industry have its own goons. That where a rapper will talk bad about another black person, but they'll never say nothing about the people who sign their checks, who's really on the damage, who's really like, nah, you can't put that out. Oh, if you say, what? Nah, your track should be killing niggas, not nobody else. But they won't make a track about them. Or we'll get mad at each other so much because it's just a self-hate thing that we got in it. So when a person's out there doing something, it's always good that they connected to some organization that's going to have their back. Can't you by yourself out there just trying to talk like that in their work? That's like being at like I said, it's like being at your job and talking like Kanye. It's like, get back to work. Go make some music and shut your mouth because you're paid to make music. You know what I'm saying? Look, we understand. We could listen and say, we see what he's trying to do. But he don't got no back, no real back. So he's just going to look crazy. Before you make a swastika shirt, you have to first be smart. You've been taught by America. Put out information about it first.
Yep.
Before you do it, educate people. Because even the people who are ignorant, who don't know about it, even black, whites, Jews, whatever, don't know, they don't know the history of that symbol. It was never called that. You understand? So since they don't know the history, they automatically going to go by what it's called today. It's like calling a woman queen and then telling her, you know, queen really means whore. She don't know that. You have to educate her. Because brothers who are conscious now, they walking up to sisters saying, yo, what up, queen? So now sisters feel like that's an empowered term, but it's really not.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They don't know the history or etymology behind it. So it's all about educating people first so that when you put something out, they know what it's about. I saw somebody put up a post and said, like they will use, in our culture, we'll put best, but we don't spell it B-E-S-T. We'll go B-E-X, because we know we're talking about the deity best. A black person will go, you better learn how to spell best before you put a post up. And you go, you know this is one of our black people who don't understand Kemet or Egypt. They will know nothing about Egypt. So they're making a statement and say, what they're really doing is verifying the white man's language. While we're trying to do it the way you say we're putting stuff in our tone, they go, nah, you just spelled best wrong. You're like, no, it's spelled correct. You know what I'm saying? Goofy. But they don't know. You know, so.
They have a problem with the word to overstanding.
Yeah. And what happened is we pick and choose when we want to get mad at stuff as black people. Because, you know, in American English, they add a new word every year. Not just one, many words. But how much time do you see us getting mad of the words that they're adding to the English dialect? No one gets mad. We just hear some Makasu talking one day and they use some word. You like, I've been asked it. That's a word. Look it up. Oh, gosh. Then you start using it because you worship their language. Stop lying like people. You like how they talk. You like their words and you like to look smart in the white man's language. And that's just what it is in this day and time. And when you get your own language, you don't have that same pride.
But they label it as confusion.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. So don't be confused.
But this type of language, that's what happens. And if your language is confused, like for instance, we had past class, we say, okay, how do you know a letter is real? You know it by the sound it makes. So if you say A, how do you spell A?
A.
If I tell you to spell the letter A, you spell it with a A. If I tell you to spell the letter B, you spell it with a
B.
I said to spell the letter C, you spell it with a
C.
Huh?
C. Which is
C?
Yeah.
How do you spell the letter C?
Oh, how you spell the letter C?
Yeah. If you have to put it,
S.
S, exactly. So you know that's not a letter. C is not a letter. D. How you spell letter D? It starts with the D. How you spell letter E? Starts with an E. How you spell the letter F? E. F is not a letter. Throw it away. That's just English alone. That's just the alphabets. So some of the alphabets are not even correct. But in their culture, it's correct for them. But when you start adding right knowledge to it, go, this don't make no sense. Like for instance, I saw a video where a guy lost Wheel of Fortune, a black guy. He was winning. He got all the letters. And then it was time to solve. His brain, what sound does CH make? What's the sound? Sure, right? So the name was a Greek name. And it says like Achilles, right? So he said Achilles. No, he lost. You heard? In their culture, he lost, but he won because he the one who got all the letters. But when it was time to pronounce it, he said, Southern Achilles. They gave it to the next person, which was a Mikasa, of course, who knew that culture because it's Greek. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's all that you tell a child how to, it's so much games in the English language that you can see that as a problem. Sugar is a papa. How you spell, what's the SH sound makes the sh sound. So if you taught your child these letters, they say, okay, now, you know what, how you spell sugar, baby? SH. Okay, spell sugar, baby. SH. They go, wrong. What? It's SU. There's no H in this one. That don't make no sense. But that's the way it is. Spell knife. We spell knife with a K. That makes sense in a question. Right? It don't make no sense, but in English it does. So English is a memorization dialect, which you have to memorize nonsense. And this nonsense is not consistent, because sometimes these letters make another sound. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way it is. So now if that's the way you was brought up in speaking this language, and that's the way you think, then you're going to think in a confusing manner as well. So when someone's trying to give you information that you never heard, and even common sense, Baba taught us this one time. He said, when a person says, I don't like what people talk behind my back, isn't that a popular thing that people say and they feel good about it? I hate when people talk about that, right? And he's like, do y'all hear what y'all saying? Behind your back, right? This is your back, and behind it is where? Your face. So when the person talks behind your back, where are they standing? In front of you, right? So they would say, the only place I want a person to talk about me is behind my back. So someone listening right now in the video, like, I don't make no sense. But listen, behind your back is in your face. Behind your face is in your back. But everyone, 90% of people in the world think that talking behind my back is a bad thing. But that's the way English is made. Right. Brainwash. If you wash something, you're cleaning, right? So anything you wash, you're cleaning. So why would you wash your brain is something bad? People say, brainwashers say that someone is tricking your mind to do something that's against you. When really, brainwashing is what we do. We give you information to clean your brain. So you think it's this way, we're going to say, well, that's actually wrong. It's actually like this. That's brainwashing. But they got the whole world thinking brainwash is something bad. You see what I'm saying? So this is the type of world we live in today. And unfortunately, that's what we up against when we teach right knowledge. We teach in true common sense. Common sense is not common. Because if you was raised in English, you're not going to have common sense. It's going to be very minimal. And English is made in such a way, many people in other countries will tell you, it's easy for them to learn other languages. You know why? Because most of the languages are very similar. They have the similar laws. But English don't. You tell a person to speak, let's say, any language that they speak and say, learn English. They have a hard time learning English. They'll learn it eventually. They'll learn to memorize, but it's still hard because it doesn't have the same laws that Spanish and French have very similar grammatical ways of using the words, how you say things, you know what I'm saying? And you could take the Hebrew or Arabic. They all have ways to talk to a woman, ways to talk to a man. English is the same for everything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Even in our language, we have a way to command you to tell us to do something. And we have a way to say, hey, that's the word.
Right.
Right? So you would know, if you told me to your child, you don't have to yell. In English, to command, you have to yell. Because your child just don't know. Be like, sit down. You know? sit down. Now they sit down. But we could say sit down in our language by the command. And you know, that's what we mean. We're not telling you to sit, we're telling you the command. You know, and if you're raised like that, then you understand where you don't have to be yelling, screaming our language. You know?
For sure. That's also a curse to your tongue. It's like you can't pronounce certain words. You know, just like our where it's hard for us to, for me, I'm gonna tell people with me, it's hard for me to pronounce certain words, and because of the tongue, the way the tongue is worked.
So, any more questions? No more. Okay, let's give them a mic. So with that, thanks for coming out. Thanks for the family online. I'm gonna ask my brother to come up here. I'm gonna close out class.
And